Hi, Word Balloon listeners. I'm Margaret Larkin, who John has interviewed for this podcast. I lived in Japan and I love Japanese language, and I want to share a tip for learning it. The language in manga and anime, especially stories that take place in schools, is usually very casual, but Japan has a polite culture, so memorize polite phrases when you go to Japan. For instance, use desu ka when asking directions, such as eki wa doko desu ka, or use arimasu ka when asking biru wa arimasu ka, and don't say anata when you're talking to someone. You can find me on YouTube at Margaret Larkin. That's Margaret Larkin on YouTube.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here, almost back to normal, everybody. The health update, things are progressing exactly as my doctors had hoped, and I'm doing my follow-up checkups today on Friday, but I'm feeling better. Everything is going great. The fluid on my lungs is dissipating, and I'm able to get around on my own and get things done, and also talk to you in this introduction to let you know that regular Word Balloon conversations will start up again next week. I've already got some of our favorite people asking to come back, and I just wanted to, take that week after the hospital to kind of relax and slowly get back in the swing of things. So thanks for your patience. I hope you've enjoyed some of the great episodes that I've brought back to you, including today's episode, which features Julie and Shawna Benson, because we know that Prodigy is starting up again on July 1st. Season 2 will be on Netflix. Man, just like Batman Caped Crusader, it is so weird that these streaming shows are not going to be on the networks that produce them, but instead other networks. Okay, as a viewer, whatever, as long as we get the shows, that's all I care about. I think the Habermans, the showrunners of Prodigy, have made an excellent show. It's the biggest surprise of the new output of Star Trek in terms of how good it is, how faithful it is to the spirit of Star Trek compared to the other shows, in my opinion. And, this is the kids' show. But, shame on me, because, of course, the original animated series exceeded expectations as well. So Julie and Sean were part of the Season 1 writing team, and we really get a great look at Prodigy's DNA in this conversation. So I hope you enjoy it. What else can I say other than I'm looking forward to talking to the Habermans. They promised me a conversation about Season 2 and really the show in general. So I'm going to be bugging them hard this summer to come on and talk about this excellent series. Julie and Shawna Benson talking about Prodigy on today's Word Balloon. It's been called one of the top 3 real Comic-Cons in the USA. August 16th through the 18th. Discover Terrificon as it returns to the Mohegan Sun Expo Center in Uncasville, Connecticut. Terrificon showrunner Mitch Halleck has assembled his biggest and best comic creator guest list to date. Jim Lee, Scotty Young, Mark Waid, Adam Hughes, Jason Aaron, Charles Soule, Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo, Brian Azzarello, alongside legends like Chris Claremont, Jerry Ordway, Howard Chaykin, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, Louise and Walter Simonson, Klaus Janson, Lee Weeks, and dozens more. Terrificon also brings you the actors who have brought your favorite superheroes to life on the big and small screens. Michael Rooker, Charlie Cox, Star Trek actors Walter Koenig, Nana Visitor, Armin Shimmerman, Ethan Peck, Celia Rose Gooding, and many more. That's Terrificon, August 16th through the 18th. For information on tickets and guests, visit Terrificon.com. Word Balloon is brought to you by AlexRossArt.com. Alex is a good friend of the show, and I am honored that he aligns himself with Word Balloon, and good Lord, we all love his iconic art, whether it's for DC, Marvel, things like Monty Python, the Monkees, David Bowie, so many other great licensed things, the Beatles. If you go to AlexRossArt.com, you will find great value for your dollar, whether you can spring for something like original cover art or pages to lithos and posters, every price point you can imagine, you will find something and a beautiful image from AlexRossArt.com. Word Balloon is also presented by my listeners, the League of Word Balloon listeners. The help that I get via contributions from Patreon, patreon.com/wordballoon. You hear the entertainment that I provide from Word Balloon every day, that I do a new episode. I am very fortunate to have the great creators of comics and pop culture willing to come on and give you great entertainment. I hope you will consider making an actual cash contribution via Patreon, even $1 a month. But really, if Word Balloon is worth the price of a comic book a month to you, it would be greatly appreciated if you slide that extra money you would put on an issue of a comic book to Word Balloon via Patreon. Patreon.com/wordballoon. Thank you, League of Word Balloon listeners. All right, everybody, it's time again for another Trek Watch. A very special one because I've got two of my favorite people on. John Suntra's here. Always happy to have a new conversation with my little sisters from Central Illinois, Julie and Shawna Benson, incredible screenwriters. You know, they work for Woo Assassins, The 100, great comic books, Green Arrow, Birds of Prey, and currently among the season 1 writing staff of Star Trek Prodigy. And in fact, they did the most recent episode, yesterday's episode, Mind Walk.
Mind Walk! Yay! Hi, John.
Hey, yay!
We made it.
Hey, all right, out of the gate, because you guys even said you guys turned me around. I am a harsh critic. I'm a Trek snob. I admit it, and I am a harsh critic of a lot of the live action product, and even of Lower Decks. Prodigy, once the pilot, the first 2 episodes, and you understood what was going on, I am not kidding, ladies. I'm not being nice because you work on the show. It is the best Star Trek that is being made.
Yay!
It is.
The only praise we look for is for John's okay.
I had asked Julie and Shawna to come on months ago, and even though this is all through text, I envision, yeah, but you kind of hate Star Trek. Are you going to be cool? And it's like, no, I like your show. I swear to God, it's a really hats off to your showrunners. Give me their names. Forgive me.
Dan and Kevin Hageman, the Hageman brothers,
with the Benson sisters.
with the Benson sisters. Yeah,
indeed. That's, man, the whole. I mean, it's very obvious from the product we're getting that they understand Star Trek. It is the right amount of fan service. The new characters you introduce are interesting. And really, and I'm so glad because it is, I mean, there's nothing wrong with making a Y7 or younger animated show.
Yeah.
But this is really an all ages show. And it is such a great Trek 101 primer. But I mean, you know, you ladies know I'm in my 50s and I love this show. It is so good.
I mean, I wasn't born when any of the Star Treks aired. I'm only like in my 20s, but yeah, I totally get it. Yeah, no, thank you. Shawna has been a Trekkie her whole life. I followed in the footsteps because Shawna would record TNG episodes on VHS, you know, put the tape in, record it, and then on the spine, write like the time codes and the titles of the episodes, and we'd have them all lined up. So like, we were pretty hardcore into TNG, and our dad was a TOS watcher, so we'd watch the reruns with him.
Oh, yeah.
And so
that's always the gateway.
That was sort of our gateway into it. And then getting the opportunity to work on an animated series, we actually told the Hagemans at first, like, we're scared to do it. We don't know if animation is different.
Live action.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be a big learning curve for us.
And they were like, you're fine. It's the same. We swear. And we're like, okay, great. We're just going to write it the way we would write it. And yeah, and it turned out great. And so, yeah, we'll let you ask questions, though. But we're just really proud of the show.
The one thing I knew from the beginning was I was like, I expect that the Trek fans will be very skeptical of this being something.
We were skeptical. We were like, what?
We were skeptical going into the show. And so I was like, look, I know my attitude about this. So everybody's going to feel this way. So we were prepared for everyone to be like, this looks like a Star Wars.
Kiddie Star Wars show.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like it's going to be very Star Trek-y. And I was like, it's okay. We just got to wait. They're going to find out. It's going to be great.
Really. And really the cast, the regulars are fun characters and they've all grown on me. Yeah, I do appreciate all that. And also, listen, before we get into spoilers for Mind Walk, I will talk in general about the show, and also your previous episode that you did, a part of the two-parters that was on that planet where everybody got their greatest desires and stuff. And truly,
Larry.
Murder Planet, aka Planet Larry, named after our
Planet
father.
Larry. Why was it Planet Larry?
Our dad's name is Larry.
Oh, that's awesome.
Everyone thought we was like Larry Nemechek, and we're like, we love Larry Nemechek too, but it was really our dad.
It's our dad. It's a funny name.
My God, your dad must be over the moon of you guys working on Star Trek.
He is now canon. He's, my dad is
I
canon.
didn't think of that. They're very happy. They watch every episode and text us,
and that
lots
tell
of
us,
emojis.
We get the full review too from Dad.
Very sweet.
I thought it was really good this week. I had a couple of issues, and we're like, really
questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Where's our mom? I love everyone.
Everything's perfect.
Well, regarding Planet Larry.
Yeah, thanks, Mom.
Regarding Planet Larry, this is where I'm like, wait a minute, this is not a Y7 show. When Rock had all the cute little things, they're so cuddly, and really they're eating Rock. I'm like, wait a minute, what the hell's going on? I'm like, yeah, good luck on that on Saturday morning back in the day. That's fantastic, man. That's like this is a lot more smarter and more adult than you would think from Nickelodeon. So that's terrific.
Yeah, when we got to Murder Planet episodes 4 and 5, ours was the second of the two-parter. In the room, we knew we had broken the story. We knew structurally how we wanted to land everything. We really arced out each character. We were really careful to treat it like we would a live action show, where everybody has a character arc. There's an overarching story, but there's a little planet or a thing of the week too, so that we can just get in and out. We talked about tropes at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, everyone's creating Strange New Worlds with bringing back the episodic Trek, and we're like, hey, man. We beat them by like 6 months. Come on.
Also, yeah, we wrote these episodes about 3 years ago at this point. So animation takes forever, but it's worth it. But when we got to the Murder Planet, we joked in the room because Nickelodeon did have some rules about, listen, we can't say murder and death, and you have to be really careful with the stakes. And we're like, but they're in space. If they open a window, they're dead.
It's 5 million ways to die. I mean, come on.
So it was a lot of being creative with our language and trying to, up the stakes. I mean, you don't put the Bensons, who have been on every murdery post-apocalyptic show ever, and expect that it's all going to be light and beautiful. No, we want it to be stakesy and scary and real, because space is scary and real.
I will say that, we give a lot of credit to the Hagemans, of course, because they knew animation. They also know what kids can take in some ways, right? Because they did Ninjago.
Okay.
Hey, Kevin's here. So they did Ninjago. They did Troll Hunters. I mean, they're legit in terms of the the younger demographic, and being really connected to that and understanding that mature. I mean, we all kind of thought about that. We thought about 100%. Kids are not dumb, and you don't want to talk to them like they're dumb. Yeah. They're smart. You want to pay it. You want to respect that. You respect all of your audience, not just the adults in the room.
Right. And the Hagemans saying things like, they wanted to make a show that their kids could watch. And we were sitting there going, we don't have kids, but we want to make a show that 7-year-old Julie would have watched, and 11-year-old Shawna would have watched, or whatever. So that was always in our hearts.
And thinking about even our grandma. What's a show we could give to our grandma, and she would be proud, and she would watch it, and she'd be like, "Oh,
that was cute."
There's
and
no
also
bad words, and there's no
there's no bad words. We do have a lot of fart jokes, though.
I'm an OG rerun syndication early 70s kid, but I have to say, in '69, when I was 4 years old, I have vague memories of my parents watching Star Trek.
Wow.
I know. Well, that's just how old I am, but that's how far back.
No, that's amazing.
Well, and add to Kevin Hageman, who's watching, and that's adorable that you're watching, Kevin. I really are listening. I appreciate that while you're cooking dinner.
They're so supportive.
You guys get it. Your entire staff clearly gets it. You also wrote, or at least you were listed for the credits on the Preludes episode from a couple weeks ago too.
Yes.
Yeah, the whole room wrote that episode. That was a group write. The Hagemans really wanted everyone to kind of do a group one.
We actually done it episode 9 as well. The first of the 2-part mid-season finale. Everyone wrote that episode.
Okay.
I forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah, Preludes was really fun to break in the room because we finally got to tell the backstories. We've been waiting to turn those cards over. And like I said, we had lots of asterisks and, okay, well, we can't reveal this about Dal until here. And so it was just a lot of Jenga. And so it does feel late in the season for some people maybe, but it fit organically into when we needed to reveal that information. Yeah. Otherwise, it just would have been thrown in.
And we're like, well, we kind of need him to hang out in the neutral zone for a little while.
Yeah.
What can we do to have him chill out there?
Park in the neutral zone while we tell one of those clip shows from the Golden Girls that wasn't really a clip show.
Remember that time? Remember that hurricane? It never happened.
Yeah.
You're killing me. No, and also I appreciated now that we know Jacob's backstory too, and also seeing him with other Tellarites.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, because really when you saw him and he was speaking in that kind of broken English, you say, or maybe it's the universal translator or whatever.
Like, what's wrong with this kid?
Right. Because he seemed like a different Tellarite. And now that we've seen these others, including what we just saw in Mind Walk as well with the Doctor, we'll get to that though. But yeah, I really appreciate the characters. I love the fan service in general. It's been great to see, Ronnie Cox, what's his name? Damn it. Jellicoe, of course, Admiral Jellicoe. Mm-hmm. And I love that. That's excellent. And where it is in the Star Trek timeline as well allows you guys to have all these great things. You guys all, and Hageman, I hope you're listening, you redeemed O'Connor and Billy Campbell because that is one of the lamest second season Next Gen episodes.
That's because you're a boy, John. We love that episode.
Understand. My 14-year-old.
We were like, who's this hottie Han Solo coming up?
I get it. Oh no, I get. And listen, he's a hunk of burning love. I love Billy Campbell.
Striker for crying out loud.
And he's the Rocketeer. Come on,
and
absolutely.
he's the Rocketeer.
But that said, it was like, hey, he's the outrageous O'Connor, and it's like, yeah, not so much. When you watch the show, it's like
not that outrageous.
They tried a little too hard.
I will give full credit to Shawna for O'Connor because we were in the room trying to kind of rack our brains.
They were going to make a new roguish Solo guy. And I was like, wait a minute, there is one.
Yeah, and so I was like, what about O'Connor? We're like, oh my god, hang on, who did the voice? I forgot it was Billy
like, what's on O'Connor? And I was like, let me tell you, it's in a really terrible part of the season of season 2, episode 13, I think.
Atta girl, Shawna.
Yeah.
Well, again, the B story is data learning humor from Joe Piscopo. That speaks for itself, unfortunately.
In the holodeck, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's doing bad Jerry Lewis. They're both.
It's painful. But I love it.
It's a cheesy episode. It's not a good episode, but
it is a good episode.
It's one of those. I love it nostalgically, but story-wise, there's not a lot there.
It felt like they had bits,
story, kind of, but I mean,
they had some story laying on the floor. They're like, these could work,
but it was a lighter episode, and it was, a character that I was like, and it would be really great is if we could get Billy Campbell.
Yeah, and thank God the Hagemans were like, we're on it.
Let's do it. Let's try to figure it out. I was like, oh my God, if we manage to pull this off.
But John, we wrapped that room just a few weeks before LA shut down for COVID.
Yeah.
We were done writing season 1. We had our little karaoke party. We were all hand sanitizing.
Yeah.
And so we hadn't seen but maybe a couple images of maybe the ship and some of the crew. They were early
storyboard stuff.
Yeah. So we had no idea the entire time we're writing it what anything is going to look like, what the kids are going to look like. It was all just in our imaginations in that room, which I just found to be so exciting and different than anything else we had done, because you're always imagining when you're breaking, but it really felt like we collectively, almost like a Borg hive mind, did have the same sort of image of all of these kids, and the voices were so unique. And somebody had asked us, did you go back and rework the voices toward the characters that or the cast that you hired? And it was like, I don't think so, because I don't think they had time and we had already written it. And then, but I don't know if season 2 moving on, they might, but
here's what I
do think we thought about Manzukis.
We absolutely thought about Manzukis. We were begging him, praying to the gods above that we would get him for Jankum. But there were also other archetypes that people that we sort of envisioned.
Yeah.
Also, it's really funny because we would do these.
Janeway, obviously.
She was the one we knew. She was locked in. but like everybody else was a little, we knew that like a child, we were going to try to get a child to play rock top.
Little girl.
So you would have that little, kind of a little girl voice, that innocence. So you could write to that. We knew that, you know, our Medusan, that Zero, was probably going to be a little more
non-binary,
data-like, and you know, with a little bit of an ambiguous type voice, but we wanted it to be that we wanted that you know, the entity to be curious and interested, and everything is just really exciting and interesting. And so, I mean, all of those kind of attributes really just got highlighted.
I don't know how I got us on this topic. Sorry, I just like talking.
No, I love this. Are you kidding? No,
we obviously don't like talking about the show at all.
Yeah, clearly. No, guess what? I mean, and I threw it up there that if people do have questions about your comics or previous shows, that's great. Ephraim, I'm going to get to your question later because right now we really are into Star Trek, and who knows? We'll see how things go.
It also gives us time to think about what it is, because I'm not sure.
All right, fair enough. But mentioning Zero, and first of all, what a great pull, because again, there's another great third season original series episode, Is There No Truth in Beauty, where we saw the Medusan and Diana Muldaur and everything and their relationship. And it's like
Star Trek appearance.
What a great idea!
That's all Hageman.
They were brilliant.
They were
brilliant
coming up with that.
Yeah, and great voice. I mean, the woman that's playing Zero is just wonderful.
It's a young man.
It's Angus Emery.
Angus Emery. He's British. Did you ever see the movie The Kid Who Would Be King? Is that the name of it?
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
It has Patrick Stewart in it playing Merlin. And the younger version of Patrick Stewart is Angus. And it was a movie that the Hagemans and us had seen recently. And it was almost simultaneous that in the room we were like, who would be good? They mentioned it. We're like, oh my gosh, we've had him on a list now since we saw that movie of every voice we ever want to do ever. So
That's
it was like
great.
a perfect confluence.
Yeah.
And so he kind of had this weird 6 degrees from Star Trek already.
He's a really interesting guy, and we also loved him because he was in Fleabag. I don't know if you saw Fleabag.
Oh,
John.
you know, shame on me. I haven't. I didn't recognize the voice.
He's the sort of weird like stepson. He's like a weird stepson that like it's a really odd role,
anyway,
but he's very, very funny. The boy who would be king.
That's it.
Yeah, guys. See, Kevin posted that. Thank you, Kevin. Absolutely, man. No, he's great. So that's his natural voice. They're not harmonizing him or anything.
I feel like Seinfeld.
I think he lightens it a little bit, but honestly, it sounds like him to us.
Because now I'm like that Seinfeld episode where you know, the guy answers the phone and he's got a real high voice and they all think it's a woman and everything. So my apologies to Angus.
Yeah, he's pulling it off. That means that he's doing the job well.
It sounds alien. Yeah, it sounds alien. That's great.
Yeah.
So, and that's funny. Langley says, and I agree with him, that's why animation is so great. They can portray aliens that are so expensive to do in live action. Absolutely. Yeah. No, it is terrific. And I loved Zero's backstory and Preludes as well. And thinking of the Medusans being out there, not in a box and just kind of being these free energy beings and stuff.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Very, very cool.
Lives, and then he gets kidnapped. It's really sad. I was sort of excited about that episode, but I was also like, this is going to be the sad one because they're all getting kidnapped and taken to slave trade. Like, how do we make that fun?
I liked Rock's. I'm sorry. Say it again, Sean. I apologize.
I said the show's really light-hearted, except for the parts where it's super dark, like slave labor and child slave labor.
Yeah, and poor Gwen and her father.
I know.
Yeah.
Raised to be a linguist, essentially.
Yeah.
Translator for all the kids.
What's the father's? He's like not the elevator. What the hell is it?
He's the diviner.
Diviner. He's the elevator.
The elevator.
There's probably an elevator in there, I'm sure.
The diviner.
He was one of the 100 that went through the wormhole early.
The eradicator. We're going to come up with a bunch of them.
Yeah. No, I know. Sorry, exactly. But I mean, I've got the crew down and everything. I loved Rock's Prelude too. Very Peter Parker, in the ring and everything. That's immediately where my brain went. It was Spider-Man and everything.
Of course.
So, very
of course.
funny.
No, she's so cute in that.
And it's funny because everyone points out, like, Rock's really had a tough go of it in her life. I'm like, yeah.
Poor baby.
And she still has this positive, like, just innocent demeanor.
Yeah.
But, I keep saying, I don't think people know the depth of how much smarter she is then it's sort of leading on to she was alone for a long time, you guys.
It wasn't that long. It was like 5 minutes.
Don't worry. It was too long.
Are you guys finding, I mean, again, you guys pack so much story in 22 minutes or whatever it ends up being. Do you find it hard to get everything in those 22 minutes? Are you overwriting, or are you, again, was it easy from the start? Tell me.
We definitely took the lead of, the Hagemans and a couple other writers in the room, Chad and Aaron. They had worked on Troll Hunters as well.
We're also co-producers.
Yeah. They gave us the sort of, it'll come in fast. It'll come in. There's a timing to it. So, the page count and that sort of stuff, we paid attention to them. But story-wise, we broke it like I said, we broke it the same way we would with like the different acts and the cold opens and all of those things. So as long as we were hitting the journey, choice, consequence for everybody in every episode and the episode itself, we weren't particularly worried. And then they would have a good idea. If we put it on the board and pitched it, they would say, okay, this is going to be too much, or it's not going to be enough. So maybe come up with something else. But yeah, we just sort of took their lead early.
I mean, they really knew how to write this. And originally, this was going to be a Nickelodeon show. Right. It was going to air on Nickelodeon. And then the Viacom-CBS merger happened.
While we were
writing this show. And then it became a question of, well, is this going to be commercial or not? And it's written as commercials because we thought it was going to be airing.
That's right.
Yeah, you got breaks? Sure.
That's why we have the act break.
So, and it was honestly, it was a good call because I do think that it helps keep the feel of a Star Trek episode to some degree, even though you're not seeing the commercials for the most part, unless you're not paying for the premium Paramount Plus, then you might be. I don't know. But I think it actually was a good choice because otherwise it would just kind of feel like almost too fast. Like it's a short break. Obviously, it's a real brief break, but it's there. Yeah.
So, and I didn't realize that. I assumed that it is also airing on Nickelodeon right now. Maybe not.
It is second window on Nickelodeon. They aren't airing simultaneously. I don't remember what the delay is, but it's several months after it's aired on Paramount Plus that it goes onto Nickelodeon. They've definitely aired, I think, the first 10 on Nickelodeon at this point. I don't know about and I know too, typically for cable and even over the air animation, they might repeat those 10 a couple times before they get to the new stuff. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Maybe,
yeah. Over and over again.
All right. Now we've spent 24 minutes talking about the show in general. We're about to go into spoiler territory. So, and this is just a long warning. If you haven't watched Mind Walk right away, you might want to hit pause now, come back to it after you watch the episode.
We'll see you in 22 minutes or whatever it is.
However long it takes, whether it's days or weeks. Come back. We'll be here, and you can pick up where we left off. But here on, I'll even for the video purposes. Here's the Mind Walk bumper once again with their names. Yay! But here we go. We're going to talk Mind Walk now. Okay, here we go. Excellent episode. My God, furthering the story in such a great way, and even the conceit of the episode. I grabbed some screen caps here, but having Dal and Janeway swap bodies, and classic Star Trek trope. Let's go back to, of course, Turnabout Intruder. Janice Lester and Kirk and everything.
It's probably the most pure body swap. There are a lot of possessions, a lot of temporary borrowing. There's some temporary. Star Trek 3, you get Spock, kind of in McCoy's head, and some stuff like that. So,
No, you're right. Yeah, absolutely. But again, you did something new with it, and hats off to both actors really killing it as each other, and just those marvelous moments of like Dal slipping in the chair as Janeway. That's
so
great.
Good, so good.
And initially, I saw your guys tease on Twitter when Janeway's being, when they're telling Janeway and Dal's body what she's going to have to do to touch Dal and everything, and have to go outside of the ship. And I'm like, for a minute, did they put Mulgrew's voice under Dal's voice to kind of? He really nailed her nuances in her voice.
I mean, I had goosebumps. I was like, I couldn't believe how close they were in the intonations and the delivery, and just all of it was so great. We did ask the Hagemans at the Emmys. I do this every time I say the Emmys. the Sunday, we weren't there for the records because it was COVID and we were all stuck at home. And so we didn't get to go see the records. So we asked, did they record each other so that they could hear how they would produce the line? And the answer was yes, of course. So Kate did all the lines. He would listen to it, vice versa. So I think that also helped them because I think they had to be nervous, right? Like you've heard all these episodes, you know that character inside and out, but now you have to do it.
Yeah,
I would lose my mind. I would be so intimidated. So kudos to them.
Yeah.
Brilliant performances. Absolutely. And just also, again, with the animation, great physical stuff.
It was
Dal
so
not
much
being
sillier than we thought. We were
Dal
so
can't walk
happy.
like Janeway, or Dal is Janeway, pew pew pew. Yeah, I mean, all that shit was great.
Oh, it's so much fun. We were so happy because in the room, we all broke it as a silly. It's going to be a body swap. I can't wait to see how this turns out. And you just don't know. Like you leave the room, you're like, okay, bye. We'll see it in 2 years. And then we watched it and we were like, oh my God, this is funnier than we even imagined. So we're so grateful.
I mean, the director, Shen, obviously a lot of that is credit to him because
Nami's music.
The score.
Unbelievable. All the Voyager that she threaded through there.
Yeah, there's a lot. And it just all helped, it just make it that much better. Yeah. I mean, than even what we had sort of imagined. So it was so great. So great.
God, yeah, this is like the television version of you guys writing a comic script and then getting the artist's art back and being like, oh my God, what they did with it.
100%. That's how we felt.
Exactly.
We're like, we'll see what it turns out. We'll see what they do. I think our comic book writing really helped us write animation as well because we could pull from that imagination. Because when we first started writing comics, I think we told you like DC was like, you can go bigger. We were like, oh yeah, we don't actually have to produce this. You're right. Got it. Helicopter crash, this, that. And then of course we talked to our artists, like, what do you hate to draw? So we don't do that. But for this, we kind of had the same imagination that we brought into the room. And we just assumed like, well, we'll write the biggest thing we can think of because the Hagans were always like, yeah, let's do it. And then they can always pare it down or decide later they can't afford it or whatever. Yeah. So having no handcuffs on a Star Trek show in terms of scope and visual ability. I mean, the fact in the Borg episode, we had all the different species that you never got to see assimilated. Like that was the stuff we were excited to see.
Yeah. Borgified rhino guy.
Yeah.
It's sort of like
rhino guy. Guess that's canon now.
I'm not shitting you. This is the best Star Trek show that is currently being made. It is better. I love Strange New Worlds. I've had my issues with the other shows. I'll leave it at that. People can watch other episodes or listen to my gripes.
Yeah.
But the first half of Prodigy was great. Now that we're really getting into the meat of the story and we're getting answers to some of these questions. For example, Chakotay's storyline. Man, fantastic.
There's a
Dreek. I didn't see a Dreek in the bottom there.
Yeah, I never saw it there. A Dreek, our little
a Dreek who? Avian. Oh gosh, what the heck is the name of the race now that you and I are both blanking?
Somebody in the comments put the race because all of a sudden we
the
can't.
Bird people from the animated series.
We're watching animated series a few times in the room to just in our mind. It was canon. I'm sorry if anyone doesn't want to make the animated series canon. That's on them. But in our mind, it's canon.
I know Gene didn't, but that's on him.
That's on him.
Isn't that weird?
Episodes. Gene wrote episodes.
Come on.
I mean,
DC Fontana. I mean, come on. So we were watching
Larry Niven.
Larry Niven.
Or Nemchek.
Thank you, Larry Niven, for the cations. We appreciate you so much.
Bless.
Samuel Peoples. I mean, no, I got to see the guy Lou Scheimer from Filmation at San Diego doing a panel before he passed away.
Oh, wow.
And I also read the book that Andy Mangels wrote about the history of Filmation.
Okay.
And Scheimer's like, as far as I'm concerned, when we were doing the animated series, we were doing the 4th and 5th seasons of Star Trek.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're goddamn right you were. And as a kid, they got the best writers. I mean, listen.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, they had their budget cuts with limited animation and all that. You guys have to have seen those great, the guy who took the Filmation style and did the Voyager 2 minutes and the Next Gen 2 minutes?
I don't think I have.
Oh man, I'll send you guys links.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh my God, they are so funny.
I love that style. That's our childhood, right? Filmation. Everything was filmation. So it was the only way I saw animation for the longest time in my head.
Wayne is right. The Aurelians are the
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you.
Rain
Trivia question that I'm like.
No, hey, Shawna, I was thrilled. We did like that trivia night, and I'm just like, all right, until someone stops, name as many alien races on Star Trek, and you're like,
here we go.
Kept going.
Yeah.
Kept going.
I actually, what was really great was I think when we did that, was that when we were on the show? Yeah. Because we had done like a list on the board when we were trying to figure out the DNA combinations for Dal. Yeah. And I was like, I knew like 90% of different species because
we had just thought of them in the room.
By the way, another great wrinkle to Dal, and I didn't even put it together a couple of weeks ago when they got into Dal's multiple DNA and everything, and it's like, oh yeah, Dal's an augment. Holy shit! And by the way, again, I that is something that is cool. And here's my one little editorial comment about Strange New Worlds, because obviously they've teased going into the second season they're going to address the augment issue, and that's fine. I really like the fact that in TNG era and forward, and obviously with Prodigy, it's like, no, the Federation is against augments. And here's a reasonable reason why. I have seen people, I've seen one of my favorite Trek commenters is Jesse Gender, a very interesting trans person. And their attitude was, well, that's kind of, racist. And, and that it was their perception of that. And it's like, you got to understand where this came from. And that's a valid perception. But I hope equal weight will be given to the original idea of Khan and the augments of this World War II eugenics attitude of, hey, we just experienced this 20 years ago with the Nazis. We don't want this.
We don't want this.
And both sides are valid. And if they have that kind of debate in Pike, I'll be fine. And I don't want to pre-assume that they won't.
Yeah, I don't know.
That is my fear. And I'm glad that in Prodigy, at least, it's like, no, the Federation still has an issue with augments.
Yeah, I
yes.
think, one of the things that we talked about was,
be careful because a lot comes out in the finale about it.
But I will say, like, just talking about what is the Federation, because obviously a lot of what we had to do was teach an audience about Star Trek.
Yeah.
Who have never seen Star Trek.
Just like,
and yet keep it interesting enough for anybody who does know Star Trek very well.
Not be bored.
So it is a threading the needle kind of thing. It's a little challenging, but once you do it, you sort of realize, okay, so we were doing a lot more aspirational view of the Federation, right? Like that really kind of bright, shiny.
They don't have any history to compare it to. And
it stands out like a beacon of hope, right? It is
the Diviner does, but
and yet we wanted to also at the same time we didn't want to do the dark Trek that you're seeing like in some places elsewhere on other shows, which we actually like. We think it's interesting. Yeah. It's a flavor. There's a flavor of this for everybody, which is what I think is really great. Like the diversity of the types of shows, the tones of the shows is really. There's unique, something for everyone. But ours obviously was coming from a little more of an idealistic place because you're dealing with kids. Yeah. At the same time, we also know the Federation isn't perfect, and that they have made different. They've evolved over time as kind of our society has evolved.
Of course.
And so the conversation around augments, yes. The mention of Soong, the mention of, that sort of background, it was Soong's proteges who were responsible for Dal. Whether they were augments or not is a question mark, but they were people who obviously appreciated what Soong was doing, and Eric Soong in this case, and continued on the work. I think it's important, though, I think, in terms of doing the kind of societal allegory that you do to talk about discrimination and prejudice. And the augment was a way to say, hey, even this perfect society still has a little bit of work to do in this area. And it's because they have their own trauma from the past. And it informs a lot of what the Federation is. Now, that debate, I think, is still to be had. And I am interested to see how it kind of pans out.
Yeah.
But at least for us, I was looking at like the Bashir example.
Yeah.
You know, when you discover in DS9 that Bashir is an augment, you know this character. He's a good person.
He's love him.
He's not gonna, he's not gonna just con out at some point. And that's the situation with Dal to some degree too, where you know Dal now. He's not like a sleeper cell agent, probably. I mean, to the best of our ability. I don't think we wrote him that way. So I think the audience will really empathize with that, and be like, oh, man.
At this point, you're hopefully going, okay, well, that cocky little man, now I'm really sad for him. And now I kind of really want this to work out for him. He's worked so hard toward it.
And the last bit I'll say about it, because I it's the thing I think is really important, is that Brett Gray has done an incredible job with Dal as a character.
Unbelievable.
Because the thing that we knew was that people would not like Dal when they first met him. He's a jerk. He's kind of
cocky. Yeah.
But we also knew what the emotions were underneath that, that there's a lot of defense mechanism happening.
A lot of trauma.
There's a lot of, masking of who he, what his feelings are deep down and stuff like that. And you got to break through all of that to get to who he really is. Mm-hmm. And it's a long process. It's a tricky arc.
That was a big arc. Yeah.
And so when we saw the original comments about Dal is just, he's awful. We hate it. Well, he's the worst. And we're like, yeah, kind of. That's the point. You want kids to also be able to see, sometimes you got to deal with some difficult people, but ultimately there's an opportunity that you can still find common ground and things. And that was the other thing we got to do in episode 5 in Terra Firma, was start that conversation for him and Gwen in finding some commonality and starting to sort of pull the door open slightly on who he was underneath that exterior.
No, you're right. And it was that wish fulfillment of finding his parents that you did start to sympathize with Dal. And I get it. No, absolutely. And I are there, and I don't want you guys to spoil, certainly with a couple episodes left to go and also second season. And maybe this is more of a Hageman question, but is there more complex character arcs for the others that we haven't seen yet?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. That's more than enough. That's fine.
I think things that have been slightly hinted at or will be very hinted at coming very soon and will launch some interesting story going into season 2.
Okay. All right. Yeah. By the way, I also love Janeway's crew. And I love the Andorian first officer. I love the Tellarite doctor. What's that?
Antennas.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, antennas. Take the bridge. Fantastic. Hilarious. No, and again, there's just this genuine vibe from this show in that's what an Andorian is. That's what a Tellarite is. I just think all of you on the writing staff really nail these alien tropes in the best way. And you've given us interesting new characters. So love it.
The one thing that's interesting is that Strange New Worlds has done, we definitely have some similarities in terms of like the types of things they wanted to explore in their time period versus what we were looking at and saying, what can we bring into this or that we want to see more of that we haven't seen, like Tellarites, and the Andorians. And since Enterprise, they really haven't played a very big part. And we wanted to see what that relationship looks like as founding members of the Federation.
Absolutely.
Let's put them on a starship. Let's make 2 of her crew members founding members of the Federation. Yeah. But, so it's interesting because people are like, well, Strange New Worlds did a body swap episode this year too. And I'm like, we wrote ours 3 years ago. I don't care what they did. There's no copying here. It's also,
I didn't know it was a competition.
I didn't know that we were like having to oh no, we can't do one. They did one. I mean, come on. Everybody's going to hit the greatest hits, right? You want to play the hits.
Yeah. There's over 700 hours of episodic Star Trek.
We're almost close to 800.
Well, there you go. And it's going to happen. So it's going to happen. And that's okay. Because again, a lot of times, like I said, with Mind Walk, you had body swapping, but it was in a different way. They're different characters. So therefore, they're different situations. No, it's great. Langley has a nerdy question. He says, what was the conversation like when it comes to the uniform changes? Do you know?
The piece that I remember, because a lot of that happened after we had left, but what we did discuss was this idea that they are not real. They're not real Starfleet officers. and they're also kind of not cadets.
Yeah.
They're like this. They're like they're like acting ensign Wesley Crusher. You know?
Yeah.
And, you know, that uniform, I think, probably was a piece of the inspiration just based on my own. That's me looking at it and going, Wesley had that gray uniform
with the blue top,
you know, and so I could
that's right, the gray one. Yeah.
And I could see that them taking that and going, you know what if an exploratory, you know, ships or, you know, the NX models, which the Protostar is, they don't wear traditional Starfleet uniforms. They are wearing a different kind of uniform to sort of indicate that they're not like official representatives of Starfleet in a way. They are doing, you know, scientific work or whatever. But, you know, Aaron Walkie says it all the time, and I agree. Like, you see multiple types of uniforms in different eras of Star Trek. You know, the green, you know, Kirk, you know, top, you know, like,
the wraparound.
The wraparound, like at the same time that, you know, the other uniforms exist. And, you know, you saw the dress type uniforms, the skirts and things.
Oh, yeah.
TNG. And by the way, I want one of those winter coats from Crossroads so bad. Like, I was so excited when I saw those images. I was like, oh my God, they took the uniform and they made it a coat, and it's perfect, and I want it.
I get it.
I want it so much.
Did you get
her universe or something?
Did you guys get any Eagle Moss ships while they were up and running? No, I got the one from Voyager, and it's not a typical ship. It's the ship where they sent the Doctor through the data stream, and he winds up on the prototype new ship with Andy Dick as the advanced PMH.
Prometheus.
And it looks like the Protostar. It's got that diamond head to it.
Yeah, we looked at that. And I think one of the things we talked about early on was Protostar having an almost like a kind of quasi star, like angular shape to it. So it has, you know, it has some Voyager touches, it has some Prometheus touches, it has some, you know, I mean, but it's the size of almost like a Nova class or smaller, you know, bigger than a Defiant.
Angular, right? It's going so fast. It can't just be a ball.
It's like an arrow.
Be an arrow.
Yeah, like an arrowhead. Absolutely.
Well,
I love it.
It doesn't have to be like, you know, because space is nowhere. But, you know,
it's great.
Idea. And psychologically.
Whatever, nerd.
Psychologically, yes. That aerodynamic kind of structure,
design. On planets and stuff, Shawna.
I mean, come on, there's no air in space, Julie. Duh, you're not going to get any wind shear.
I'm reading the comments. I see them all now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no. That's totally fine, man. And we'll get to some of them in a second. But Chris was sweet and said he loves Prodigy. I love everything the two of you have done. They should they should be putting you guys in charge of the big shows like Picard and Discovery. And I can say that about not only you guys and the Hegmans, but Mike McMahon as well. The animated shows are eating the live action shows lunch every week. And I was not a big Lower Decks fan, but this season, and again, this is what happens with TV shows. They evolve. They figure out what works and what doesn't
work. Get the rhythm. Yep.
I get it. I so get it. Although, again, luckily we do get occasional shows like Prodigy that hit the ground running. And I'm sure there have been tweaks along this first season and will be in the second season. But you got more right than wrong. And I think, again, well, and I wonder, and this maybe is more of a Hageman question, but are Kurtzman and some of the other people on the higher echelon, are they too busy with live action that the Hagemans are kind of left to their own devices? I'm asking. I don't know.
We can't answer that directly because we don't have that knowledge, but we had a lot of free reign, it felt like, on that show.
Good.
For sure.
And it really helped that, like, the Nickelodeon execs, once they saw what we were doing,
they kind of went,
they were like, okay, this is cool. You know, I mean, it was an interesting process. I also think that one of the things that allowed us to really nail it is the amount of time it takes to make the show, right? Because there you
go.
Yeah,
they trust us. That's it.
Oh yeah, Kevin, I'm so glad you're saying this, and it's great to hear it from you. And I'm glad you're still watching, and it's great to hear it. Kevin is saying for the audio audience, they trust us. Kurtzman has been an amazing supporter. That is wonderful to hear. Absolutely, man. Because again, you guys I hope, and I'm sure you guys are very happy, given your history in animation and stuff, and maybe you're more comfortable there. I would love to see you guys handle a live action show. Because
I think they'd love to do it. I think it'd be
Hagemans,
fun.
yeah.
They should.
They've written live action movies.
They wrote Scary Stories.
Yeah, Scary Stories.
The film for Del Toro.
I'm guessing that the feedback that both Prodigy and Lower Decks are getting, I certainly hope that Kurtzman and company in the higher echelon are listening, and that they consider that, because truly, listen, I get it. And like you said, Shawna, and I agree with you, there needs to be different flavors of Star Trek. I'm so with you on that.
Yeah.
But sometimes, again, my little editorial comment, I worry that sometimes they make so many changes, it loses the Star Trek in the process. That's my personal point of view.
Okay.
So,
but the definition of Star Trek obviously changes a little bit over time. I mean, there are things that the original series did that we would not even touch today, because it was not. It wasn't right. I mean, they obviously did their best, and they did a lot to move things forward in, showing Black people in space on television,
Asians,
interracial kiss,
yes.
Really, really commenting on things like the Vietnam War in really kind of, in obtuse ways. Like, all of those things are really important, but they also, all of the women were wearing their short skirts and, with their beehive hairdos. So,
it's like, I don't see the problem.
Exactly. Sorry, I wasn't listening to you. I was too busy looking at the women. I'm sorry. I know. Asshole. I know. No, but you are 100% right. And it's unfortunately, that was the 60s, and that stuff was ignored. I was talking to Kelly Thompson last night about Marvel stuff, and we brought up the very creepy Professor X having his, private thoughts about Jean Grey. And it's like, dude, teenager, what are you doing? Shut up.
Get out of my head.
Yeah. Turnabout Intruder, by the way, is such an interesting episode, right? So Turnabout Intruder, here's the nerd glasses.
Why are we talking? Shut up and go. You know that.
Last episode ever filmed, right? Shatner didn't get his shot afterwards. He was supposed to direct an episode, I think, after Turnabout Intruder, and the show got canned, and so he never got his directing shot on the show. It's so there's this weird. They apparently, I read a thing about it. Apparently, they were starting to take down the sets and stuff while they were still shooting the episode.
I have heard that.
You're like a drill in the back.
But what's interesting about it is a real body swap, but it is like all of Kirk's predilections, and peccadillos of all of his girlfriends throughout the universes. One of them decides, you know what? Screw all of this. I want your life, buddy, and I'm taking it.
So great.
And by the way, I'm just going to kill myself. So you can't get out. You can't get back. And I'm dark. It's dark, man. But I also was like, this is really interesting in a feminist kind of way, where this person says, this is not fair. Yeah. I do not like this, and I'm going to fix it.
I want your
even
life.
Even if she's the bad guy, I was like, I think she's got a point.
Yeah.
I know, and I appreciate that point of view on it. And of course, in the 60s, that poor creature, lock her up, put her in the psych ward. She's got issues. And again, no, I get it. And this is why it is great that there's evolution. And even I would love to see them address things like that. And maybe that would be a great. I mean, I guess it can't happen on the Pike show because it's still far enough in the past. Maybe if we eventually do get to a Kirk show, that would be great to show. Maybe, hey, you know something? Maybe we're wrong about Janice. Yeah, her motivation, she went too far, but we kind of see where she's coming from. And certainly we've seen in the Admiralty and captaincy other women captains in the TOS era since when they flash back and things like that.
Totally. Right. So, and then TNG introduced the idea that Rachel Barrett was the Enterprise B captain. And I don't know where I pulled that one from, but it was in my brain somewhere.
Yesterday's Enterprise. Come on. Absolutely.
You watched yesterday.
And Admiral Nechayev was a great nuanced character.
Yeah.
That depending on her mood was an adversary or a supporter of whatever was going on.
Yeah, I think a lot of the female captain stuff came after, sort of like in the films. I think that's when they really started to introduce that much more.
Yeah.
And because now you're talking about it's the 80s. And it's like, at what point, guys, is this not going to fly anymore? Where women are, being like, come on, we're like in, executive positions in companies and you're not going to
by that point,
allow
weren't
us to
they
be a
also
captain
in
of a starship?
real spaceships and NASA and stuff? So it's sort of like, guys.
It's like after Sally Ride, no, you got to,
Are you guys watching on Apple For All Mankind?
Julie's favorite
Obsessed.
show.
I'm obsessed. It's my favorite. If I could write for any show, that's the one. I'm obsessed with it. I love it so much. At first, I was like, "What's happening?" When you first watch the pilot, you're like, "Hang on," and you're like, "Oh," and then it just gets better and better and better and better and better. I love it so much. It's so Star Trek.
It absolutely. I agree with you, and I've heard others say that too. That Ron Moore, obviously with his Trek pedigree and stuff. Yeah, subconsciously, he's really writing the Star Trek prequel with
100%.
For All Mankind. And the showrunners were on Larry Wilmore's podcast. And again, it's like, it is just so comforting when you hear showrunners, and it's like, you guys get it. That's my shorthand always. It's like, you guys just get it. And I'd say that about you, the Hagemans and your staff as well. So, that's great. Franco's popping in.
Yay.
I will say, I do want to point out, like, we actually had a couple of writers in our room who were not diehard Trekkies. Yeah, and it was great. It was
wonderful.
Yeah. Nikhil, who was the writer for Time Amok, which is the timey-wimey episode 8. And also he wrote the Dow's DNA episode.
Yep. Wow.
So he knew Star Trek, but he didn't really know Star Trek.
Right.
And so he was sort of a great barometer of, does this make sense to you?
Is this too much of a deep dive?
As someone who doesn't know Trek very well.
Certainly.
And which is, again, why it's really great to have that that cross section to sort of test ideas against. Deandra had come from being the writer's assistant on Picard.
Yeah.
And so we had insights into some of the stuff there without getting too spoilery. We were like, we're in the same family. Why can't we know what's going to happen in Picard?
Yeah.
But it was still very helpful in terms of understanding, like, well, these are the story type things they're doing, and we wanted to make sure that we weren't stepping on. And I mean, like, we kept running into stuff with Lower Decks because obviously there was a lot of similar ideas.
Yeah.
And they would say, well, we're going to do this thing with Riker, and we're like, darn it. Okay. Fine, we won't use Riker or the Titan, even though that was certainly the idea at one point. So,
well, thankfully, it's a big Star Trek world, and God, I hope. And again, I don't want you to spoil. We still have several episodes to go in this first season, plus next season. I certainly hope, just like Lower Decks, that more Star Trek veterans that would make sense from a timeline standpoint are utilized. And
I think
if the veterans don't watch the finale, they are going to be missing out big time. I will just say that, like, this, it's such a bombastic finale. It's going to be insane. I can't wait for people to see it. It's so good. It's so good.
And knowing a little bit about season 2, I think what you're saying tracks.
About season 2.
I think what you're saying tracks in terms of there being some additional people
moving
coming
forward.
into the.
Good. I hope so.
It's the right balance of fan service. It really is. It's a nice accent. And God, again, the 2 Okana episodes that we saw, there might be more. Who knows? I mean, he ran off, but I mean, they've been great. And like I said, you totally redeemed the character. I wanted to go back because some people had comments about the Diviner. And Wayne said, interesting that the Diviner is concerned with the well-being of Gwen versus the mission to destroy Starfleet. Yes, his character arc has certainly seemed, based on what we saw in Mindwalk, to have taken a bit of a turn, and it's going to be interesting to see where all that goes. And also, Chris says you've managed to write. He says probably the best Trek villain with the Diviner. Yeah, he's great to watch.
First of all, I love John Noble.
He can do no wrong. John Noble.
And I mean, it was so great that they got him to do the voice for the Diviner, because it's honestly exactly right. And I mean, definitely, I think about Fringe and his portrayal of Walter on Fringe a lot. And there were those moments, like especially the alt-U Walter, that was very dark. And then the very light, kind of silly version of Walter that was in our universe. And him being able to sort of balance that. And that's the show. The show tries to balance the fun and the silly, because it's still a kid's show. And you have to always, that's always in the back of my mind. Like, a lot of the reason people are always like, well, why don't they put a message in a bottle and send it out. I'm like, well, okay, if it doesn't get shot, but also we're writing a show for kids that can't write. And a lot of our characters don't know standard. They don't even talk the same languages. They rely on a universal translator to communicate with each other, established in the pilot. So it is, entirely, rational that there's not a lot of written communication happening with those kids. I mean, we got Morse code in there because we were like, look, that is like a huge basis of stuff. It's a thing Hollow Janeway would tell them, to try out or whatever. But back to the diviner, the thing about the diviner that we talked about a lot was, he's pretty hardcore and he's ruthless and he seems like a real son of a bitch when you first meet him, because he's running a child slave camp, digging.
Means to an end.
Yeah. But at the same time, once you understand why he is doing all of this, you understand, he's not a sociopath. He's not a psychopath. He actually is deeply emotional. He wants to save his entire planet. He wants to save his people from self-destruction, the means of which is a little twisted.
Not so great.
Not great. He just basically wants to keep the Federation from ever showing up there and doing anything to his people. But the means are a little iffy.
Yeah.
But the fact that he has that depth of emotion is what allows him to, once the slate is wiped clean, who he is at his core is still there. So now he can do things like see the fact that he has a daughter rather than a progeny.
Yeah.
We
specifically use that word in this episode. I think Essentia still calls her a progeny, but he starts to call her daughter.
When he first remembers her, he calls her, I have a daughter.
That's right.
And that's, so, I mean, you get to that where he's starting to make emotional connections where she was a means to an end. She was a safety, a backup plan. And now she's his daughter. So there's emotion there. And so, of course, the conflict for him now is, okay, I remember what I'm here to do. It's super important. But I also have had this experience with Starfleet where they've treated me really well.
Saved my life.
Janeway is really nice. She's given, huge bit. The dude looks like a villain, for Christ's sake. And she gives him a huge benefit of the doubt of not going, you look a little villainy. Just FYI. You look a little, she doesn't judge.
I'm not judging. Yeah. First rule of Star Trek.
Well, the best Star Trek villains are actually just adversaries, and you can extrapolate that to even, I feel like, Michael Rosenblum's portrayal of Luther on Smallville, where it's like, that's the bad guy, but you know where he's coming from, and you feel sorry for him.
Yep.
Because it's like, no, I got, and again, like you said, the diviner is repping his entire planet, and in a way that the Suliban were never given that opportunity, I think, in Enterprise.
Yeah.
So,
I think you're right. Like the Suliban's whole vibe was it was painted a lot more black and white. There wasn't as much gray, I think.
And having worked on a show like The 100 where everything was in grays, our villains were one week a hero and the next week the villain. And you're always dealing with the complexities of just being a human, even though he's not a human, but being a person and having different viewpoints and all this. It's really important. Otherwise, it's just a mustache twirly bad guy. And kids are smarter than that. And they need to understand, she's having issues with her dad. And maybe my dad got mad at me about something, but I love my dad. And, trying to figure out the nuance and where your emotions lie and your loyalties. And clearly Gwen's still dealing with that. We saw in the holodeck, her dad is a therapist in her holodeck. Yeah.
But we love getting to write that scene that you were showing the image of where it's the diviner with Admiral Janeway and him making that choice, because we wanted to show that, he has this conflict. But she has treated him well. So he has a very good reason to help her out. But that act obviously is going to have a big repercussion going forward, which is great for us story-wise, but I think for his character as well. Dal now knows there's something different about the diviner.
Yeah.
The last time they saw that guy, they were on Tars Lamora and they were going to be left there for dead. Yeah. He was going to take the protostar and bye-bye.
Peace.
So I think it's interesting that now Dal has new information, about what's going on that he can take back to everybody on the other ship.
Oh, both Dal and Gwen have secrets for each other.
It's true, they do.
And I love Essentia. She reminds me of Seska back in the Voyager.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, Jamila is doing like the most amazing job, and I think she's having so much fun.
Obsessed with her anyway.
And I love it. I love that she's having fun with this character. She's not been here as long, right? Like she got here like a minute ago versus him being like digging in a rock for 20 years, right? So it's like
only been, was 3 years, I think.
She's a little fresher on the I remember everything real well.
Well, and again, it shows how large the plot is, and that it's not just the diviner, but he does represent this entire planet. Not to mention his robotic major domo, whose name escapes me right now.
Dreadnought. Yes.
The Dreadnought.
Jimmy Simpson. Amazing.
Love Jimmy Simpson.
Fantastic. No, and very threatening.
Today, like he just comes in, he says a really reprehensible line, and then leaves. That's like his job.
But that's the thing. It's the subtlety of the villainy and the shades of gray. Life is shades of gray, and kids need to learn that very early. Despite what the culture wars might want to tell you, it is more life is more complex, and people are more complex. And I think that's great that you guys are teaching that lesson. I think along with the Trek 101 stuff. So,
I credit the Hagemans. I credit everybody, honestly. Nickelodeon, Kurtzman, everyone at Secret Hideout, like really trusting us to do this very complex
hat trick
plot that obviously is going to continue a little bit because there's a lot going on in the next couple of episodes and beyond that, we definitely had a lot of diagrams and timelines and things on the board, just trying to track where things were, where our kids were versus where things happen. I mean, there's this event that you just can't unwind, which is the supernova, the Romulan supernova event. Mm-hmm. And so you're kind of always dealing with that. And we're a couple of years away from it in our timeline, but being able to do some real timey-wimey stuff and allow us to figure out a way to tell that story, and kids aren't going to get completely like, whoo, don't know what's going on. Like got to take it in stages, and you got to really step it out very carefully.
I think that's the bit we did in Preludes. We wrote the sort of diviner ascension, explain it all bit.
Oh my God. And that was a heavy lift because it was like, okay, we're going to write this backstory. Here we go. Like, whoo. I mean, everybody had a tough job.
I loved last week's episode too in the holodeck. And God, it was great seeing Murph do his Sinatra. That was great.
Chad Quant wrote that one, and he's so funny, and he was kind of our comedy guy in the room amongst other things, but he had this idea for like a video game-esque kind of holodeck episode, and he knew what it was from the jump, and I think he had to catch us all up, and once we all sort of saw it, we were like, got it, got it, yep.
But it was a lot of fun,
so fun,
and we also knew that
great.
There's a lot of some heavy stuff, we've telegraphed or warned about for this, the ship being a weapon and all these things. So it's like, this is the fun stuff we get to do right before it's going to get a little darker, kids, and strap
Hold
in.
on.
It's going to be all right. Like, come on.
Oh God, yeah. And the corruption of the Janeway hologram, and these scenes were terrific too, where she's essentially speaking to herself, Kate.
Those were our favorites to write.
Yeah, those were really fun. And the animators really just killed it here in selling there was the transition so we could have them face to face. And that was definitely talked about in the room.
Yeah.
We were like,
this
needs to have that emotion to it. And, in my mind, I was always like, Holo Janeway, she doesn't have to see what we see, right? I mean, she could kind of see, once she knows that's Admiral Janeway in Dal, she would see her as Admiral Janeway.
I get it. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and also like the Doctor on Voyager and stuff, I appreciate the human characteristics of Holo Janeway and everything, and that, beyond just being, and that was my concern initially, but again, you had to build to it. When we first saw her in the early episodes and stuff, it's like, oh, is she just going to be kind of a database that they can go to, or is she really going to have a personality? I love, by the way, the spit take that Dal does as Janeway when he drinks the coffee. That was fantastic.
That was
had to do it.
always going to happen. And I can't drink coffee, so I will attest that is sort of how I react to coffee.
Really?
Coffee.
Everyone else loves
I'm with
coffee.
you, sweetie. I'm so with you, Shawna.
You
My
guys
God.
love it. I love the smell of coffee. I love everything about it. And then I try it and I'm like, Dal, I spit it out. I'm like, how do people drink this? It's awful.
See,
So yeah, that had to happen.
Shawna will appreciate. I bought for myself, really, a great French press. None of my immediate friends drink coffee. So this is, again, why, as I always tell you guys, can we all live on the same street? Because we'd have coffee every day, buddy.
I'm doing pour over Chemex. I'm definitely living large.
I like the smell. I'm jealous because I want the
Oh,
caffeine.
no, and that's that. I mean, it took a while as an adult to acquire the taste for it, but it was always, oh my God, even growing up, the smell of coffee, it's wonderful.
Love it.
So
Emotional discussion of Chakotay, yes.
go ahead. Yeah, the emotional discussion of Chakotay was amazing between the two Kates. Absolutely. She did a fantastic job as both Admiral Janeway and Hollow Janeway. Agreed. No, and again, it is so great. And I don't know where this is going. I mean, just as a sympathetic fan of Chakotay, I hope he's okay.
They just go to an ice rink in the next planet, and it's like 2 episodes of ice skating. It's fine. Nothing happens.
Nothing happens with 1,000 ships surrounding them.
Yeah, our cliffhanger is like, what?
I know that was. I've got the image. Absolutely, It's like, yeah, they're going to be fine. Sure. Good Lord.
It's like Wolf 359 all over again, except no.
It is.
No, they definitely had some fun with that. I was really impressed also that people were picking out the classes of ships that show up, and I'm like, there was one guy who's like the ship guy, and he was so excited, I think, about doing designs, and I was like, he was into the kit bash stuff, and I was like, oh, this is going to go
This
deep.
will be fun.
So that's basically, I think, why you see a lot of like. Yeah, the Centaur class and the Sovereign class and, like the Defiant class is even in there, which is pretty great all in its own, in my opinion.
Are you guys aware of the YouTube channel called Trek Yards? And it is so the ship porn Star Trek podcast. Oh, it's so great. And they get granular. And that's, again, it broke my heart last year or was it earlier this year when Eagle Moss went out of business? Because I'm like, oh man! Not like my one friend was very smart and got the Orville and the Orville shuttle, and I'm like, oh yeah, I wanted to get those, and I wanted to get the Pegasus and the Galactica from Ron Moore's Galactica.
Yeah.
Come on,
Oh my God!
Not to mention a bunch of other Star Trek, ships.
Yeah.
Too funny.
Yeah.
I don't have room in my place. If I started collecting the ships, it would be over. They'd be hanging from my ceiling or something.
Basically, that would be the only way we'd be able to do it. It's just hanging.
I got 3. I have the Delta Flyer, the Defiant, and that and I can't remember the name of it right now, but the one from the Andy Dick Voyager episode. Prometheus, of course. Shame on me. Yeah, because again, I really like the design.
It's a cool ship.
Yeah, and I met the Eagle Moss guys in New York. And they were so lovely. They're like, I bought one. They're like, hey, pick 2 more for free. I'm like, oh my God.
Okay.
Oh.
And I was just gonna buy the Prometheus. I'm like, well, if that's the case, I gotta get the Defiant.
No wonder they went out of business.
Yeah,
come on.
Somebody's gotta buy them. Yeah, somebody's really gonna like keep that going. Yeah. I don't know who, but they're absolutely
beautiful. They're beautiful.
Oh my God. Models. What is all right of all the Treks? Do you have a favorite? Do you guys have favorite ships?
I think, I mean, I know most people, I know a lot of people.
I like the Enterprise just because of the carpet, but go on.
Wait, which Enterprise?
TNG Enterprise.
D.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Most people that's like lower on a lot of people's lists in terms of the design. I still love it because I was like, oh, it's the coolest ship I've ever seen. It detaches.
Yeah.
Come on. That's just the best.
I hear you. For me, it was too bulky.
It was definitely very top heavy. And by the way, I have like the USB like sound thing. It does like white noise and stuff.
Yeah,
and I love it.
White noise machine.
But because the ship is so top heavy, it can fall over very easily. Like it is just
Shawna, in space it doesn't matter.
I know it doesn't matter.
Gravity or whatever.
It's true. But for my gravity-filled office on my desk, it doesn't always want to stay upright.
I have very few Christmas accoutrements in my house, but one thing I bought years ago, I don't think I ever told you guys, was the Hallmark ornament of Star Trek II, The Death of Spock, when Kirk and Spock are kneeling.
I know that ornament.
I want that. Does it make noise or do anything?
It's the whole dialogue of ship out of danger.
Yes.
It is without the music, but it is just their voices. And it's like, of course, Spock died for our sins, as we know.
Yes, he did.
And arose on the third day.
I still cry in that scene. I can't handle it. It's like when E.T. is on the beach. It's the same thing for me.
I love, 5 has risen in my estimation as far as movies go. It's an imperfect movie, but there's so many great moments. I love the campfire stuff.
The campfire scene is fantastic. The rock climbing and the campfire. That opening is so great. And then it just kind of goes downhill.
It's
real
fine.
fast. But
it's what?
It's fine.
Yeah, well, it is what it is. But I have to admit, a lot of because also it's the best story about the three of them.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love when they're in the brig, and he's explaining. Well, technically, he's not my brother; he's my half brother. I have to sit down and just all that. And also, when Scotty breaks him out, come on, do you not know a jailbreak when you see one? Come on.
There's some good moments, and that's the thing. Like in any of those films, any of them, you find the things that are that still speak to those relationships. And I think that's the thing that people sort of look at Star Trek for more than anything else, is not just the aspirational view of the future and this, the tech and the ships and this and that, but like that initial that initial trio and that triangle relationship the three of them have between Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. It's a really special thing. And then these other characters are also rich and great, and it's obviously it was a tragedy that the show was canceled when it was, because I think they would have done a lot more with the supporting characters, like with Chekhov and Scotty. I think there was so and Sulu and Uhura. I think there was tons, Chapel even. Like there's so many stories to tell.
No, they're trying to do it
and
now.
Yeah, I mean they were going to try to revive that show at one point. I remember they had that like they had the script because those are the ones that they ended up using for TNG and the writer's strike that are
right. A couple of those episodes. That's right.
Gosh, we might have a writer's strike next year. We'll see what happens.
God. Oh, God. Did you ever read Gabe Hardman, I think, for the IDW, I think it was called Waypoint, the anthology comic book that they had. He wrote a Star Trek Phase 2 story that focused on Zahn, the Vulcan that was going to be in the 70s series.
I haven't read that.
No.
I know that they did
Gabe did that? Cool.
Yeah, I know that the Jackson Lansing and Colin did like a year 5 or something.
I've been reading it. It's great.
Yeah.
Is it good? Okay.
Yeah, so
they're killing it, and I can't wait for Cantwell's book that's going to come out next year about Worf and the Defiant.
So jealous.
And man. Oh God. So I would love to see you guys. I don't know if you have the time for it, but I would love to see you guys write IDW Trek comics, or
Oh, we'd love to do it. We'd love to do it. Are you kidding? Oh, and did you know, John? I'm now canon. David Mack's book came out.
She's beta canon, but she's still
Harm's Way. It just came out, and he sent me a copy with a little post-it.
I love that you're advertising David's book for it.
Because
I don't mind.
On page 45, at the helm sat Lieutenant Julie Benson, a woman who Starfleet in her 30s rather than in her youth, as so many had done.
Outstanding.
Isn't that great?
That's amazing.
So, yeah, David was great. He was a consultant on our show who we would give scripts to, and he would kind of breeze through them and say, oh, yes. Oh, what about this? Or I'm not sure about that. Yeah. But mostly all he had was high praise, which was so great. Because he was sort of like you, John, where he was like, all right, let's see what these kids got, And then he has had nothing but high praise indeed. So, but, that means a lot to us.
I think we did him a solid. A couple of things made it into canon that he created, like Chimerium.
Yeah.
For the, which powers the cloaking devices. And that was a thing he had written into one of the books.
That's
great. The brick car, though, right?
That was Peter David. And that was a really great pull from
John,
the
what's the
Hagemans.
update on Peter? I have to get my dog.
I got it. I don't know, Julie. Honestly, it's funny. I was talking to another friend today. I don't know the current information. I hope he's okay.
Yeah.
I've only met him once, and I really leaned into more of his Star Trek work than it is comic book work because I'm such a fan of so many of his novels and everything.
I devoured his Star Trek work, like the books.
I loved his Hulk.
So good.
What's the dog's name again?
This
That's
is Gideon.
Gideon.
He was scratching at the door, so everyone.
It's okay.
He's from a different
He's a
universe.
bat.
He's a Wookiee.
He's a Wookiee.
He is a Wookiee. He's adorable.
And that's
I
not
love-
really
Kelly Thompson, last night her cat was crying. I'm like, she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, no, I love when the pets walk across the camera. That always cracks me up.
Pants.
There he is. It is Pants. He is watching. I am thrilled. I miss you, Pants.
Pants.
I don't know if Pants is up to date on Prodigy or if he's watching it. He might still be in like season 70 of Gunsmoke or something because he's doing his whole watch every episode of every show, which is the most incredible thing ever.
Pants, I had no idea. Good for you,
man. Podcasting that, man. Like,
very disappointed.
We told him to.
Oh, he's not podcasting. He's just doing a rewatch on his own. He's not.
Yeah. We told him he should
up to date.
Okay.
Yeah, he says apparently he's up to date on Prodigy. It's good to hear, Brian.
Right.
Very good. I miss Pants. I haven't seen him at a show forever. Obviously, COVID, played a role in that.
We owe Pants a big thank you because he got this at New York Comic Con for us. And sent it to us recently, and we were so hoping to have Murphs, and so we thank Pants.
I'll confess I liked Murph better as a shmoo. Yeah. Now that he's got the body, I'm still with him, and obviously,
no, I hear you.
He still has his abilities and everything, but
slimy Murph. Yeah, I hear you.
It made sense to us to do something like that with him because kids grow up, people evolve, and we were like, let's give them that experience of, they do love Murph in that form, but hopefully they love him still because he's still Murph, even though he now has some limbs. He's still very squishy and stretchy, though. Very squishy.
Clearly, that was a great scene with him on Mind Walk. Absolutely, man. I am very excited about where this story might be going, and I don't want spoilers. I'm very happy to get it in weekly doses. It truly is one of the shows I look forward to every week.
Oh,
and that's the truth. Yeah, you guys killed it. Tell me about the Emmys. How was it?
The Emmys was a trip. It was great. We've never been. Julie and I both have a certificate for a web series that won an Emmy, but we were not producers on that. Kevin has to go, but
Kevin. Hey, Kevin. Seriously, thank you so much for watching, and it really means a lot that you were watching and everything. So. Thank you very much.
You guys should come on John's show. I'm just gonna show for John.
Yeah, please, Kevin. I if it's okay with you, I would love to get your contact info through the Bensons, or if you want to email me, it's john@wordballoon.com. But I'll at the very least I'll find you on Twitter and message you. But thanks a lot, Kevin. It really means a lot to you.
The glamorous life. My dog just pooped.
Thanks. Thanks for showing that on screen too. Right over my head. Really appreciate it.
So back to the Emmys. I also I won a local Emmy.
Yeah.
Or I nominated. I was nominated. So I have an Emmy certificate as well.
Yeah. So we back when that happened, we because my our good friend Bernie Sue, who was the producer on that web series, he had the statuette. So we took as many pictures as you can imagine holding the statue. Because we're like, we may never get a chance to do this again. It's like we're going to take as many pictures holding this thing as we can. And so it was exciting. I mean, we had managed our expectations, but the one thing they told us that really gave us some perspective was that across all of the categories, so like there were live action and there were the animated categories, there were like 3,000 entries or submissions. And we were like, and somehow we got into the top 5 for original, animated series.
With only 10 episodes.
With 10 episodes.
That's pretty great.
Which means that we could be back next year if we get nominated again. Fingers crossed.
Amen, sisters.
Yeah, but it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was so great to see LeVar get a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Gosh.
And
thrilled.
to be given it by Cowboy Curtis himself, Lawrence Fishburne, which the fact he mentioned it, Julie, like if you were to watch the Emmy cast.
At one point I'm like, Shawna, it's Cowboy Curtis.
I know. I was like, I know. And then he called it out and we were like, yes. You can like hear us like screaming because we were like so excited that. And then when sorry, what's her name? The show that won was City of
Elizabeth,
Ghosts, which is a wonderful animated show on Netflix. Unfortunately, it's no longer going to be continuing on. But the person who accepted the award, the creator, she was wearing a Manos the Hands of Fate dress.
I saw it.
Julie and I lost it. We were so excited. We're like, one of us
lost an Emmy, but we're like,
Manos. Like, how can we be sad? We can't be sad to a woman who wore a Manos dress to the Emmys. Like,
so good.
Eric Bauza was great with his acceptance speech as well.
He's done work on our show.
I didn't know that. That's great.
Barnabas in the
Barnes,
when they went to the outpost, and he was like kind of the only one there and the goofy one.
Sure! Wow, that's amazing.
And I think he also did a voice in the of one of the Enterpriseians in the episode where they visit the planet and the people that look like they are Federation. But the
planet that emulated the Enterprise. That was a great episode too. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I really enjoyed the first half, but really there's a lot of inventive ideas in the second half. It's been great.
The second half. And I think it's because once we got through that first half and we sort of had established who all these characters were and we got them off Tars Lamora and off into, the rest of the galaxy, you can start telling those really fun kinds of stories. And so it opened things up for us. It's like, okay, great. We know who they are. And now we can start playing with those character dynamics and doing some of these really great tropes. And trope is often used as a bad word. And unfortunately, but trope is an easy shorthand way of saying it's a type of story. Mm-hmm. And so for us, it's like, yes, there is a body swap trope. We've seen it lots and lots of times in various things.
Try to be specific, at least, for these are Star Trek things that if kids then go and watch the original series or TNG, they'll go, oh, they did one of these on that. And they'll start to understand what that means.
Yeah, so, and we were trying to pull from everywhere. Like we pulled from Enterprise, we pulled from Voyager, obviously. DS9, I think, probably didn't get quite as much rep as it should have, although we got Odo in the Kobayashi Maru.
Which was hilarious.
That was fantastic. So good. And so, I mean, I feel like we did our best to sort of, pull from wherever we could find really great cuts and not do it in a way that was like, look, we know Star Trek. It was, this is organic to the story we're telling. It is of a piece of it. And
like the salamander line we keep talking about, we tried to figure out, we knew from the jump we had to address this.
I mean, it's too funny.
It's too good. And we had to find the right episode, the right moment. So it didn't just feel shoved in and boom, once we had her having to do some crazy thing, it was like, there it is. There's the moment. Look. So
I mean, and we could have had her just say, weirdest part of the job, which is a thing she'd said in Voyager. But it's much funnier to talk about the most ridiculous moment
and to call it a salamander, which I'm not sure.
Threshold. Yes.
Yeah, threshold.
And there was so much promise, like, oh, they're going to hit warp 10. What could happen? Salamanders? Really?
Salamanders?
All right.
Apparently.
All right.
You can't not address that.
But yeah, the Xindi, I mean, that was a cool thing, to be able to like pull the Xindi into Crossroads was a fun, really fun.
Tara, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Tara. Agree. Yeah, no, Mind Walk was an incredible episode. Tara's just commenting on that. But yes, the Xindi, the Kazon in the Zero backstory and everything.
Oh, yeah. They was on a real bad person.
Yes, and they had the visors because, again, if they didn't, they would have gone insane, which I love. It's like the attention to detail like that.
Thanks, Franco. Franco's saying it's a balance of funny and true Trek.
That was the goal.
That was the goal.
We
did it.
That was the North Star.
I'm excited to watch every episode because, like I said, we didn't get to see anything until now, and so it's been a fun adventure for us to watch it sort of with fresh eyes. And then season 2, we're not a part of it, so being able to watch that in a brand new season is going to be really fun. We threw a lot of like, here's some grenades before we leave the room that could potentially happen in season 2. I don't know if they're doing any of them, so it'll be fun to watch.
I think they are a few of them.
Oh, good.
I'm excited. I'm interested. I kept some tabs just to see what was going on.
We went back and looked at the script actually because we had written it so long ago. We had done a pass. You looked it up. It was like April 2021.
Yeah, that was the last time we had hands on the script.
Wow.
Yeah.
April 2021.
And we wanted to go back and like, oh, well, before we start taking a lot of credit for stuff, let's make sure we actually wrote it. And we looked back and there's some great Hageman additions. The Beep Boop Boop from Jankum, I think, was one of theirs. But they had to add some techno babble for Brock. And we knew, I think, Dr. Aaron was going to come in and kind of give us some of that. But everything else was us, and we do a little pass on every script in the room. We do like a little punch-up joke pass. And we all sit there with it on a screen and kind of try to play around with different jokes and things. But it was such a fun group.
I was going to say, when we were talking about the voice actors, I think part of the challenge we had was that, like, when we would do those table reads, we all ended up kind of starting to read the same parts. And so, like, Dan would read Jankum's lines. And so anytime we were writing Jankum, we would hear Dan's voice in our head. Although, again, Mansukas was definitely very much in our brain.
Yeah.
But, like, I was reading Janeway for the most part, which was, and I was
gonna say, let's hear your kid. Come on.
Oh, it's so. My voice is scratchy enough. I might be able to do it. I just would pull off the more authoritative vocal patterns of Catherine Janeway, and it's terrible, but it was fun.
I don't remember who I always played.
You bounced between Rock and Gwen.
Yes, Gwen.
Yeah. Rock
nice.
And
Nice.
And but like a lot. So some of the ancillary secondary characters who came in or whatever, like other people get. But like Kevin would read Zero a lot.
Yes.
And
so fun.
We all kind of. Although I have to say, Chad read Jankum a lot too.
Yes,
like
Chad
I was
a great Jankum.
So it would move around where
Lisa was going a lot. Yeah, it was just fun. We all took turns, and we would read it around the table because then you wanted to hear it.
Yeah.
And if something was tripping anyone, or one too many words there, you had it. And you played that song in 5 notes. You don't need 6. That sort of thing.
And that was new for us too. Like we would never have done that in a live action room.
No,
but in animation, it really was helpful, especially because these are so tight. And so it was like down to the word. Like how much can we pull out of this line? Not just like almost like comic panels, right?
Yeah. Brevity.
For bubbles, it's
exactly what we need.
We need the minimum amount to get the point across, and yet, because
it was crazy to look at the cards on the wall too, of all the card turns, the theoretical card turns that we had for story of like, oh, this is where we reveal Dals and Augment, or this, like all of those things. And then we got to our episode and we had so many cards and so many card turns that we were like, okay,
here we go.
It felt like a hard, it was a challenge to make sure you're having the fun of the body swap episode and tripping around and falling and spitting out coffee. But at the same time, like, we have to reveal the diviners doing this. We have to reveal, you're
huge,
having
big emotional scenes, moments.
Land them in front of a bunch of Starfleet, all of these things. So, but that's the challenge and that's the fun.
That's the fun. I mean, that's the puzzle.
Jenga on the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. So yeah, you literally had a spine of beats that had to be in your episode. And I assume that was the case with the previous Planet Larry episode that you had to do as well, where it's like, these things need to happen. And then by all means, so was the mind swap of it, was that your guys' idea, or was that part of the assignment getting this?
It was the early days in the room. We said, okay, what are the Star Trek tropes? What are some sci-fi tropes? And we put them on cards, and then we kind of cherry pick, because you didn't want to just say, okay, it's time to do the mind swap, or it's time to, it was more like, hey, this organically fits. And we knew we had to fix this problem of, we have to get them to communicate with each other. We can't hold poster boards up in the window. The kids don't know standard, yada, yada, yada. How are we going to do this? This is a challenge we had set from day one. And when it came to the part of, hang on, we have a card for a body swap, this is exactly where we need it. It just fell into place. And then we kind of would break the episodes in the room together. And then eventually the Hagemans would sort of assign somebody. It feels like you're up on an episode. They actually pushed us down the line a little bit because we were working on a pilot for the Henson Company at the time. And so we were kind of trying to finish that up. And so they pushed us down the line to this episode, which is great. We like writing this sort of pre-penultimate.
We did that a lot.
Anyway.
We did that a lot on the 100.
Yeah, we were always in the back end.
Yeah, and it's like it's not a bad place to be. I mean, it is a challenge when you have to do like a penultimate, or in this case, an antepenultimate episode. But it does feel like a penultimate. I mean, the finale is 2 parts.
That's not a spoiler,
here we really had to because it's a Supernova Part 1 and Part 2 are the episodes.
Those are the last 2 that are coming up. Those are the 2 that okay.
Yeah. So we really had to set the table for that finale, which meant wrapping up a few things, making sure everyone's kind of on the same page about a lot of things, and that the audience is fully up to speed, with the characters. I mean, so it was a daunting task, but I mean, that's the job, man. And it's the fun of it too. I think less on the one on Murder Planet, on Terra Firma, but there again, every single episode, there were the beats, and the beats would be either a plot beat or an emotion beat that we wanted to hit. Yeah, a character beat.
This is where we have to start turning Gwen, having her realize that her father maybe not the best guy in the world, maybe hiding some things from her, big stuff like that. We always have to get the very emotional big moments too. That's always fun.
I know, those are great.
Talking about our feelings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Usually on the 100, they had to be going down a water slide, shooting guns, and talking about their feelings. So it's nice to have
they actually get to sit for 1 second and talk about
something. A minute.
Yeah.
Again, it's the right balance of what's happening in the specific episode, but also giving us the tale of the season long story arc and everything. So no, I really think the entire staff is nailing it. Truly, I mean, it is such a. I mean, really, from coming from my frustrations with Disco and Picard, it's just and really, Franco's on that show, and my buddy Mitch from Terrificon, and it's and Wayne also, who's been contributing to the chat and everything, and it's another good episode. Yeah.
Oh, that's that really means a lot to us, because as Trekkies, as Trek fans, we really wanted it to work for us. We wanted it to work on all the levels, like a Pixar movie. Parents can sit and watch it with their kids, and you're going to get something out of it. They're going to get a whole different experience. It was very 4-quadrant in that way in our brains, but that means a lot to us. I think that's the highest praise we can have. That, and when we have parents come up to us and say, I finally get my kid to watch a Star Trek with me, and they're so excited, and you're just like, what? You're like, this is so great. I can't believe it's happening. So.
The difference, I think, honestly, is that the way that programming has evolved over the last, 40 years or so, is that the audience is much smarter about how to ingest story.
Yeah.
So where, yes, we could sit and watch a TOS episode and it would be great for us, but we were used to slower pacing, and we were used to a different kind of speed. So today you kind of have to treat it a little differently, because everybody is like, yeah, we got it. Let's get to the good stuff. And, and especially when you're doing it in this tight of a time frame, then you're really like, we're going to do it. We're going to cram everything in here. It's going to be fast. But also, I think we do enough layering of stuff that, multiple views, you're going to catch different things. You're going to see, and the animators absolutely leveled that up. There's a really great background moment in one of the episodes. Well, it's the episode after.
It's my dog's food.
It's after Murph is hatched. And Rock is in the foreground, and she's doing her first science officer log. And in the background, it's just a total sight gag, but it's Gwen chasing Murph with the hamster ball, trying to get him into the hamster ball. Yeah. And it's just this ridiculous thing. And I watched it and I saw it, and I was like, that is just amazing. That was genius. In terms of bringing something else into the screen of interest. You are watching Rock and you're listening to her, and it's great. But then there's this other thing happening in the background that just kind of informed it all.
That's very Jacques Tati, frankly, Mr. Hulot's Holiday, where something very mundane is happening in the forefront, but it's really what's happening in the background that's
real behind you. Yeah.
Rick and Morty does that all the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And even Lower Decks actually did that at one point, where some techno babble was going on, and Mariner in the background was just getting the shit kicked out of her by some alien that was just slamming her down constantly and stuff. So that's, again, you're right. There is a level of sophisticated storytelling that's happening now that didn't happen then. I always point to Alias and the original Mission Impossible.
Yes.
Mission Impossible, the original, and I loved that show as a kid, both watching it in first run and reruns. It's like watching an hourglass now compared to the stopwatch timing of Alias. And it's so true. Like poor Phil Morris's dad, Greg, is sitting cracking a safe for like 20 minutes. It's like they keep going back to him. And there's that Lalo Schifrin music on the snare drum where it's like, open the goddamn safe. Let's go.
Just get on with that.
Yeah, I would be interested to put like an episode of Mission Impossible, or like let's take 2 episodes of Mission Impossible against a Mission Impossible film. Because
an act of a Mission Impossible film.
Similar to, like you're saying, Alias, like JJ wrote one of those movies, at least one. And so they let's do a compare, like how much story exists in these 2 episodes versus this one movie. And it's going to be a pretty substantial difference. So I get that people are like, I could just watch TOS as a kid. And that was my entry. And it's like, yes, that was our entry point. You are correct. No kid is going to sit there and watch TOS right now.
Not many.
They might watch it when they get older and they have an appreciation for it. But right now, you got to speak to them where they're at. Even adults and millennials, like where we're all at. Like, this is where we're at.
Time is money. Money is power. Power is pizza. Let's go.
When in the early aughts, I was between apartments and I was living with my sister for a while. And my youngest nephew was like 10. And I was watching like a TNG rerun on Spike. And he goes, I hate this show. I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes, all they do is talk. And then they see the aliens. And you think, okay, finally, there's going to be a laser fight. No, let's get in a smaller room and talk a little bit more. And I'm pounding the floor laughing. I'm like, you're not wrong.
It's not wrong.
But that's Star Trek, man. I go, Star Trek is put down your weapons. We've chosen not to kill today, as Kirk says. But that's the lesson. I mean, that's what's great. And I get it. And he still laughs about it. He goes, you still watch it, don't you? He's like 25 now. I'm like,
oh my gosh.
I still watch it. Yes, I do.
Of course you do.
Still breaking your balls about it.
It's on like, a
Pluto TV.
It's on Pluto. It's on, they show it on like Heroes and Icons and other stuff. Like I'll watch a night of Heroes and Icons. Like I'll watch the TOS and then you watch TNG and then Voyager,
in order. Yes.
DSI and then Voyager. I'm like, I'll watch that.
John, I had a nerdy run-in. I did turn into a Trek nerd for like 5 minutes at my vet because I was taking Giddy into the vet for a checkup, and in comes this pit bull, on a leash, and I always just look at the dogs and I'm like, who's the sweetest baby? And this pit bull's like, nang, 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 like so cute. And I look up to see who's holding the leash. And it's this beautiful woman. And I look next to her and it's Patrick Stewart. And I went, like, don't say anything. Don't and they're like, this is, and I forgot the name of the dog already. Somebody in the comments probably knows. This is so-and-so. And we just adopted her and she's so sweet and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, so I sat there for a few minutes. They checked in and I was like, when am I ever going to get a chance to say? And we were working on the show at the time.
Wow.
We'd just come off of it. And I was like, fine. So he was sitting there and I went up to him and said, listen, I write for a Star Trek show. I don't want to be a weirdo, but I'm writing for the new Prodigy show. And I just wanted to say hi and how much of an influence you are. And he was just like, oh, how wonderful. Oh, great. And then literally they called him in with his dog. And I was like, okay, awkward. Yep. Bye. Okay, bye. Sorry. I've never done anything like that in my life. But it was like, when am I going to see Patrick Stewart in the lobby with his dog and my dog?
Yeah. Our glamorous Hollywood life. Like, so we end up at Star Trek Day for reasons that still escape us, but
because
we're there.
We are very fancy.
We're very awesome.
And you are fancy and awesome. Don't kid yourselves.
Anyway,
but we're there, and somebody said, "Well, do you want to meet Will Wheaton?" And I'm like, "Yes, of course I want to meet Will Wheaton."
Shawna had a poster of Wesley Crusher.
I had more than one
wall.
poster of Wesley. I had Wesley.
I did not say to him, Shawna had a poster.
I know. I was like,
wall.
don't you rat me
so
out.
Close.
Don't you dare rat me out. So
close.
I was like, oh.
But he was very sweet and so complimentary about the show. His nephew watched it and blah, blah, blah. It was so
great.
I love that, he's now like back in with the family in like a big way. And obviously does the Ready Room and all that stuff. I think it's so cool to see him. Like we embrace all of it, because
I will not tell you what bet, but
yeah, no, it's very, it's hush hush.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Kara-
Well, I don't think so, but at the same time, you feel like anytime we would go to like comic events too, any of the cons, and you're like, oh my God, it's so and so. And like, do we talk to him? I don't know. We don't want to be weirdos. We don't want to be like.
But we're total weirdos. We're total nerds.
Yeah.
Like,
we've gotten better. We've gotten better about sort of getting over that a little bit.
I'm super uncool.
I mean, you would talk to Anson Mount, which I was even too afraid to do.
I have a great photo that I don't think I can share, but it's so good.
It's so good. Like the fact that you got him to take a selfie with you. Which
yes, it was our boss on Woo Assassins, John Worth and Anson are friends, and so
they worked on Hell on Wheels together.
Yeah, he was on Hell on Wheels. And
sure.
So I went up to him and said, "I've worked with John Worth. I've heard all about you. We have to take a picture and send it to him." And he was like, "Oh yeah, we do." So,
that's great.
Yeah.
God, again, and Wayne echoes this.
Oh, very pretty.
He's very
I keep
pretty.
hearing how
Very
great he is.
unsettling.
So.
I mean, Discovery has blessed us with Anson Mount as Pike and
Come
now
on.
Strange New Worlds. And honestly, if it does nothing else in its entire run, it did that. And I am grateful, that, and I like the first, I actually like Jason Isaacs in Discovery. Somebody asked the question earlier, how do you feel? I thought Jason Isaacs was fucking great. Lorca is a great character. And, really leaning into the mirror universe stuff, which I was not expecting at all.
How did we talk to Jason Isaacs at that 100 party and not mention Star Trek?
We didn't talk to Jason Isaacs.
We haven't?
No.
Oh, okay.
We saw him once, but it was not at the 100 party. I'll have to think about
Someone will tell me off camera. Yeah. I also have like bad aphasia in the sense of like, I'll misconstrue a name with a different face.
You're thinking of Jason O'Mara.
I'm thinking of Jason O'Mara. See?
Oh, sure. And I've met Jason O'Mara. Absolutely. That happened to me with the Galactica people. I met Anders, and I'm like, I said instead, I really love how you play Apollo. And of course, that's Jamie Bamber. And he was very cool about it. But I'm like, idiot.
But see, I would do the same thing. I'm so prone to malpropisms and awful things like that, especially when I get nervous. And so I would just turn into a dumb blonde, like, I loved you on Star Wars.
All right, bye. Yeah, I know.
Yes, we are unfortunately nerds. Yeah. Oh, you didn't wear your sweater.
I'm wearing the Klingon rock.
Bye.
The Klingon rock band concert tee that we got at the 10 Forward thing at 10 Forward. Which
Shawna was wearing yesterday a sweater that it was painted by our mother that says Star Trek Next Generation.
Yeah, there's a photo. There's a screen cap of it on my Twitter feed.
Oh, there you go. From the 90s, because she could not find any TNG sweaters back in the day.
They didn't sell merch. Are you kidding? Like we were lucky to get the figures and the die cast.
That's right, Langley.
Jason O'Mara was the other Batman.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right, Langley. Thank you.
I didn't talk to him about that either.
Very good.
I really miss him.
Really missed our chances.
I need to get like everybody on the call when I see a famous person. Be like, what am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to say?
Remind me. What's the IMDb? Read it. Yeah. No, I know. This is just, and I think this is based on the Lower Decks like gag about like the Klingon rock stuff.
Oh, that's right. When Mariner shreds the guitar and everything.
Yeah. So, and it's got like concert dates on the back. So it's like they played Kittimer. And
okay, so do they play? Like, is this a real band like Gary Graham's band? No, it's a totally fake
I would love it if it was, but it is pretty hysterical that they made this shirt of like these Klingons, and it's with like this Klingon rock band.
Oh yeah,
and it's fun, right? I was like, I have not gotten a great piece of swag like this in a decade. I was like, I'm wearing the crap out of this shirt. I love this shirt.
We did corner Kurtzman at a party. That is the last of my dog's food, and said that we would love any opportunity to work on any Star Trek show. So hopefully, if the opportunity arises, we could get on something else. But we just don't know. I mean, their shows are off and running. Their crew is pretty set. It's hard to sort of break in mid-seasons on things. But we definitely made it clear, like,
we're around.
We want to stay in the family.
Yeah,
we know there are new shows in development, so hopefully. And listen, as much as I've complained about the first two seasons of Picard, Terry Matalas has said every right thing. The trailer looks amazing.
Oh, great!
Their New York panel was great. Yeah, I really am like convinced that finally they're going to get things right in the third season of Picard.
It's the Picard you were kind of waiting for.
Yeah.
Well, and again, I was all for an introspective look at Picard at this age and dealing with where he is in the universe and everything.
Totally.
I just didn't agree with the choices they made.
Interesting. Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, you know,
I think we all wanted TNG reunion show, and it didn't happen. And they were like, "But we're doing this other thing." We're like, "Okay," and they did the other thing, and then now we're like, "Okay, can we do the reunion thing
we
now?"
really wanted now? And they're
Well,
like,
and also, I know I'm not alone in the fact that when it comes to live action Trek, it's a divided response. That you know, and of course,
I wasn't aware that it was so divisive. I think I was sort of insulating myself a little bit about it.
And that's, again, it's you know, I was talking to Jackson Lansing, and he told me he was walking around San Diego Comic-Con with Bijou Trimble, one of the great letter writing original, you know, people. Thank you, Bijou and John, for giving us season 3 of Star Trek, or it wouldn't have happened because of that writing, without that writing campaign. But they were talking, and Jackson was saying maybe about disco or something, that he wasn't crazy about it. And she said, you know, though, just like you said earlier, Shawna, the great thing is there are Star Trek shows for every generation, and let them have their show. We've got our shows that we love. You know, more stuff is coming. You know, just and that's literally, as I've told you guys as well, every week, whether it's Discovery or even the 2 seasons of Picard that I was crazy about, I'm like, well, maybe I'll like this episode more. And I always go in with an open
tuned in. You were hopeful. You stuck with it because you love the franchise. And I think that's also important. That means a lot. And I think the more feedback they're getting of what's working and what's not working for fans, I mean, clearly you can always course correct. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a lot more challenging in the last couple of years to do that same level of course correction because there's fewer episodes. A lot of them completely done.
It's locked
by the time they start airing. And so there's really, like, in the old days, you know, you could maybe course correct in the middle of the season.
Yeah. You don't have a mid-season.
But
you just have 4.
Yeah, you have 8 episodes. You have 12. Go.
No, you're right. Tara wants to know, and I guess she wasn't aware because we saw it earlier. Maybe you guys can pull it up, but she's like, "Where's the Prodigy merch? When is the Prodigy merch coming?" Yeah, there is a Murph, you know, kind of little doll that they were.
Well, there was this thing from Comic-Con. It's got a little beanie butt, but he's just a little squishy. But this is not the toys. We did have meetings early days with the toy departments, and they are definitely talking about toys. We talked about them years ago, so they're hopefully in process and being made.
There's some stuff actually. They announced some action figures that are coming out. I think that the whoever it is that's making them now, I want to say it's not Galoob. Why do we keep thinking Galoob? But you know, it's you know, it's whoever it is that's making those. It's just like essentially it's like Hasbro. But anyway, they do have the first like 2 sets of them, I think, coming out.
Oh, cute! Where
it's like Rock and they're packaged together. So I think it's like Rock and Murph, and I don't know if it's Dal and Janeway, but then you know, all of them will come out as action figures.
Well, we talked about even the ships when we were in the room. We're like, wouldn't this make a cool toy? Like, what would be the cool toy version? Well, if we had this Vectech, I think we called it something else on the show, but in the room we called it the Vectech, the little 3D printer they have to make stuff.
Yes.
Because we're like, why wouldn't they use 3D print technology?
We do it now. So we were like, this would be cool because then you can have like a car come out of the ship. And like we were thinking in terms of toys a little bit just for our own benefit in the room. And then, of course, knowing it's a kid's show and they're going to want to make toys of these things. So that was the fun part, too, is like.
Yeah, unlike a lot of
thinking a little bit sideways.
A lot of animated shows where they're like, we need a toy for this. You need to make a toy. We actually were like, what can we make that would be an awesome toy? Like, it wasn't that we want to do this type of toy and make it happen.
Yeah.
It was the other, you know, it was us wanting to like own all of the toys.
Yes, a squishy Murph from day one. We have said we need squishy Murphs.
I want a Protostar model ship, like
those big ones. Yeah. Those things they have at like Costco, those big squishy pillows. I would love one of those. I will say that Shawna and I got to name Murph, and so that's our only I want to say only contribution. That's our only contribution to the show.
The only thing
nothing else. But no, it's the one that I will, just because I don't like to take a lot of credit. It's a group effort. But that one was specific because we had a great driver in Vancouver. He worked for the production on The 100. His name was Mike Murphy. He since passed away. Was it this year or last year?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Great
he was
guy.
so wonderful. He was just so lovely to us and made us feel so comfortable and wonderful. And everyone called him Murph because it was Mike Murphy. And so when we were talking in the room about what are we going to name this little goober, we came up with lots of names.
Oh my God.
Put them all over the wall.
So many single syllable, double syllable names, like whatever, sounds.
Squawk.
Yeah.
I don't know what we were talking about.
So many.
And then I just was like, what about like Murph? Because I had him in my heart and I was thinking about him and they were like, oh, that would work. And then they changed the PF to the F because that looked a lot better.
Funny.
So Murph is named after somebody very sweet and wonderful. So I think that's always a good thing to have.
That's really nice. The names were. It was a lot.
I have them in a notebook. I'll screenshot them for John. They're ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that. That's fantastic.
And we definitely talked about, the sort of Grootness of it, does he say Murph, 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 Murph? And that was an idea for a little while. And then we didn't want to totally rip that. So then it was like, well, what kind of sounds he make? And then you have D. Bradley Baker come in and just we
knew we wanted whale kind of.
It was like walrus and it was like some other stuff that was mixed in. And he just totally comes up with whatever because he's a genius.
And then we did some He-Man Masters of the Universe episodes, Shawna and I, last year. And he did some voices on that. So we were just like, oh my gosh, he's on everything.
Yeah, he is.
I wish Hageman was still watching because I'd say, hey, here's a great idea for Prodigy. Why don't you do a callback to the humpback whales from Star Trek 4 and have Murph be able to speak to them and everything?
There you go.
That would be really smart. We kind of did our homage to that in the first episode back in the second season when they're helping the aqua.
Yes.
It's because we were like, what's a fun opening adventure? And it's, let's do an animal thing. Well, they're saving a whale. How about let's do that?
Yeah,
but not a space whale. It's got to be an alien whale type thing. But it was, and that was another vehicle. We were like, can we do a underwater thing? That would be fun toy. Let's do that.
I loved back when Voyager was on the all-water planet and Voyager went in the water and everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We talked about that too. Yeah.
Despite the impracticality of that. And I know, again, the Trek nerds are like, I love in the JJ second movie when the Enterprise is underwater. It can't happen. It's like, just relax. It's a movie. It's all right. It's okay.
It can withstand the pressure, the vacuum of space. I think it'll be okay underwater.
James Cameron went down 1 billion feet. He's fine.
Tara says there's a real news story about whales lowering their vocal tones, and supposedly it's a science mystery. Hey, man, it's going to be like Douglas Adams said with the dolphins.
Wow.
So long and thanks for the fish. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That happens. We're all going into the bunker.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the only good thing about the Hitchhiker movie is that opening song. So long, so long, so long.
So long.
Yeah, it's so.
Do you have? I mean, we mentioned All Mankind. Are there other streamers that you're watching that you love right now? I'm loving The Crown. I'm savoring The Crown.
No. I'm still watching it because I'm savoring it too. I know it's
you're
going to
behind.
end. I am, but I'm on purpose this time because I want to watch it slower.
I was on a panel in Pittsburgh with Tom Savini. And he did all the makeup for, all the zombie movies.
Oh, yeah.
And we were talking about sort of horror and whatever. And he just out of nowhere goes, the scariest thing I've seen recently was The Crown. And everyone was like, I'm sorry. But he was talking about a certain episode, which I don't want to spoil, that opens in early 1900s, late 1800s, Russia.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. The Russian episode. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
And it was the next one I had to watch. So I was watching it on the plane going home going, oh, wow, he wasn't wrong. This is dark.
Well, yeah. And really, it's the international politics of the series that fascinates me because I was never a royal. It's like, oh, my God, what are they doing now? I don't care. Yeah. But it's really interesting. And also the intricacies of the way the British politics worked in terms of, the prime minister is really the guy that's running the show. But he still needs the protocols demand that you have to go to the queen and get her permission, or now the king. And it's like, that's really interesting. And again, the international politics. My favorite episode was from, I think, the second season where Billy Graham came to England. Yeah. And Elizabeth has that crisis of conscience regarding King Edward wanting to come back and not knowing the truth I'll keep it spoiler free for people who don't know. Yeah. But I showed that I have older cousins that are in their late 60s and they hadn't got into the show. I'm like, here's an individual episode. Yeah. And this is why you got to watch it. and they were blown away, and they didn't know the real story either. And it's like, wow. And I'm like, I know, that's what's crazy about it.
Yeah.
Brilliant show.
I love The Crown. When we saw the first season, Shawna, we were doing Birds of Prey, and we were doing a lot of, interviews for that. And we were talking about The Crown of like, it's like watching a superhero show, and that she's just been given the superpower that now you're in charge of things. She didn't ask for it. She doesn't want it. And she's surrounded by a bunch of dudes telling her what to do, regardless of what you think of the politics or the, the bad history of colonization and all that.
Yeah.
If you watch it primarily as a character tale of this woman who's had to go through all of this, it's really fascinating. And I know a lot of it is probably fictional and whatever, but I did just finish the Harry and Meghan 6-parter. Fascinating. I loved it. I actually was team Meghan and Harry because I just assumed I don't think they're lying about the tabloids. I've lived long enough to see how really horrible they were and killed a princess. So I'm pretty sure she's, getting it real bad over there, especially all the racism and awfulness. Oh, yeah. So watching their version of what had happened and really sort of turning the cards over on a bunch of stuff that I think people thought A, and it was like, no, this is really B, is really fascinating. And they got the receipts, man. Like they're like, here it is. Peace. So I think watching that would be really informative.
I'm not a World Cup person, but I watched the FIFA documentary on Netflix.
Oh, how was it?
I saw that.
Unbelievable. I mean, you always know on the surface that FIFA's crimes and also just the whole thing of it being in Qatar and the fact they had to move it to November, obviously, because you're not going to play in 110 degrees on a nice day. And, all that. But this really gets granular in terms of like the various soccer conferences from each nation or group of nations. And just some of these like corrupt guys you can't that come from the developing countries. It isn't just Germany, France, and England imposing their power. It's like, hey, the guy from Trinidad and Tobago, real crook, and fascinating, completely. And again, coming from just sports in general, Donna De Verona, who's a wonderful swimmer and was on one of my sport networks as our Olympic expert. Oh, wow. She really gave me the lowdown on the Olympics. I can't even watch it.
Oh, that alone is its own documentary, isn't it? Like just the corruption. I just read that Ukraine wanted to do the president. Sorry, Zelensky. Thank you. See, that's not right, is it? That sounds like the brake pads in Tommy Boy.
No, did I say it wrong? I don't remember.
What was it?
I don't remember, but that's hilarious. You're probably right.
Anyway, but yeah, Zelensky wanted to do a little thing at the FIFA for world peace or something, and they said no. And it's like, really, guys? Really? Okay.
And meanwhile, Qatar that abuses pretty much every human right. Sure, come on in. Great. Let's build 9 stadiums and kill 4,000 to 6,000 people while we're doing it. Sounds great. Fantastic.
Yeah.
No, I love these documentaries. I mean, what else are we watching?
Yeah, please. I love
Rings of Power.
Go ahead.
I loved Rings of Power, but I just love anything set in New Zealand and it's Lord of the Rings. I'll just watch it. Yeah. I don't care if they're reading the phone book. I love it. Callahan. But no, Zelensky was Blues Brothers. Blues Brothers. What's his name?
Oh, Aykroyd?
Aykroyd's character. Somebody.
Oh, yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. The breakpad guy. Absolutely.
Slavery is awesome. No. No.
Let's see. Andor was clearly, I think, one of the best shows of the year.
So good.
Hands down.
Really intense.
I think the first 2 episodes could have been one, but that's my nitpick.
That's about our only criticism of it is this
is too feature writery. Hang on.
There's a lot of, I think there are a lot of shows. Frankly, I think season 2 of Picard maybe could have been 6 episodes.
Oh.
And that a lot of these shows, because they have 10 episodes, you're almost giving them too much material or fabric to make their story. And it's like, no, I mean, because you're like, really? Nothing happened? They're still at that party in season 2 of Picard, for example.
No.
It's dumb stuff like that. I mean, so it depends on the show. As you know, ladies, it always comes down to the writing. It always comes down to the writing.
That's right.
I never blame the actors. It starts and ends with story and character. And you have to
and budget and there's a lot that happens behind the scenes. Like we have been on shows where you're going down one path and then you lose an actor or something really bad happens and you can't talk about those things. And so now you got to reconfigure in 5 minutes, or there was a fire in the GVRD and now we can't shoot there. And so now you have to, like, there's all these things that obviously go into it. Zelensky Motors. Thank you. I knew it was the same Z name, Zelensky. Okay.
It's too funny.
Anyway.
That's hilarious.
That's cool. No. You get those worms in your brain. And I know, no, it's like, all right, it's going to drive me nuts until I figure it out. I get it.
Yeah, Zelensky. And it's like,
thank God we got the peanut gallery to help us out. It's all right. Yeah, For All Mankind, I'm trying to think of other dramas. Well, by the way, Kids in the Hall. Jesus Christ. What a great comeback.
Great. I mean, obviously there's a lot of stuff that has been brought back, rebooted, that has been fine. But oh my God, they kill it. They were so great.
Just Dave Foley doing the DJ.
Oh my God, that
post-apocalyptic DJ
is amazing.
I must have watched it 100 times. It was
not also because it had special resonance for us because like when we were really, really, really small,
little,
like very small,
3, 5, something. Like
that. Our mom had us like singing that song, Brand New Key.
And we sang it like prayer or something. So we knew that song.
So he's playing it over and over. We're like, oh my God. I think I'm having some PTSD.
And our aunt had the little, what are those, John? The 45s, the little ones?
Yeah, those 45s. You got it. You're so
had that. And we would play it over and over and over again. So I think we were a little bit.
We're like, whoa, hang on. This is too real.
Like, oh no.
Well, as I've told you guys, sadly old enough to remember when that song was brand new. So yeah, no, and it's true. You're right. I get to meet Foley at Terrificon, Mitch Halleck's show in Connecticut at Mohegan Sun, and that scene of him and Kevin McDonald naked running around the car, and I'm like, you guys have balls of steel.
Literally,
literally.
And he's just laughing and smiling. And also from the old show, one of my favorite sketches was "Girl Drink Drunk."
I love Girl Drink Drunk.
I have a shirt. I have a shirt that says "Girl Drink Drunk" and it has a martini on it because I love that sketch so much.
I make people watch that sketch all the time.
You saw Shawna's and my Halloween costumes from like
a few
2015. We went as Jerry Sizzler and my sister Jerry Sizzler. I will brag that Dave Foley just started following me on Twitter, and I think that makes us best friends now. So
yeah, that's how that works.
That's how that works.
Absolutely. No, I claim Michael McKean for that. Absolutely. So, or at least he didn't follow me, but he responded to a couple of my tweets. And same with Meryl Marco. And that adored me because I've always loved Meryl Marco's humor.
That's always so much fun. It's so bad that Twitter is so toxic now again. It was always toxic, but now it's just like, bleh.
It's really
that you're like, I can't talk to anyone fun anymore. Yes, Girl Drink Drunk is the best.
I have to say, I would say a lot of my favorite sketches are probably Kevin sketches.
Kevin.
like
Citizen Kane.
Citizen Kane, absolutely. I said that too.
It's just a perfect sketch. But
I also, and I'm so glad Dave said he did write this line. It was a job interview that Scott Thompson was having. Or no, he was giving the interview. And Foley goes, well, I'm from Canada. And he goes, Canada? And he goes, yeah, it's like America without the gut. And it's like, and he goes, yeah, I wrote that line. I'm like, well, that is the perfect description of both countries.
I was so glad it was so good.
Yeah, it was hard to that one was hard to pace out. Like we tried to actually make that one last, and it was hard.
I get it.
Like, now we got
great documentary too about their history.
I loved that.
That was great.
I was really sad to hear that they had so much sort of turmoil there for a while. I was like, I
wasn't surprised, but at the same time, it was it's tough because you really want to.
You want to believe that they're all just besties and whatever.
Oh, 100%. I have so many friends in radio that used to be duos and aren't anymore. Even my friend Mike Greenberg, who was on ESPN Network Radio, and his partner Mike Golick, and they were partners for like 20 years. And then Greenberg's like, I just want to do something different. And so many people resented that. And it's like, Martin and Lewis, you name it. It's like they want to do their own thing eventually.
John, the fact that I just learned recently, my little monkey's brain broke that Mike never really loved Peter. And I was just like, hang on. I can't deal with that. Like I get really upset to know that my monkeys like had animosity, especially Mike, who is my favorite. I was like, Mike, come on.
Did you read his autobiography?
Not yet.
It's so great. And really, get the book on tape, get the Audible of it. Because
will
he
I be able
narrates
to handle it? I mean, it feels like too soon. I can't.
Seriously, Jules, I so hear you.
Okay.
And really, I'm still working on my Monkeys documentary and collecting interviews. There's a guy at Rhino. John, his name is ironically John Hughes, but not the director guy. But he was the Rhino label liaison and supervisor that put together Good Times and their Christmas album that they made, the last 2 albums they made.
I had the cassette of Good Times.
Hey man, great stuff on there. Come on. But it's so good, and I want him to be part of what I'm making and stuff.
Got to. Yeah. Did our aunt have the dolls?
Wow.
The Monkeys dolls?
I think she did. Yeah.
If you need them for the documentary, we can try to dig them up from Illinois.
That's good to know. It's going to be audio, but I will build a website because my co-host and partner in this, he has a lot of memorabilia and has a lot of the original singles and albums. Ooh. So we want to throw up like images. And that's
the fun stuff. So fun.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I didn't have it. My cousin had the Corgi Monkey Mobile.
What? Oh man. By the way, the Barbie trailer came out today. Speaking of toys.
I saw it.
So good. I am so excited.
I think it's perfect. I really hope that the tone of the trailer is what we're going to get.
Yeah.
Because it was very funny. I loved, Margot Robbie in the classic, original onesie.
Oh, my God. That movie's going to give me an eating disorder, I swear, because she already just looks so perfect. My first potential eating disorder was Batman. When he picks up Vicky Vale and asks how much she weighs, and she lies and says 98 pounds or something. And I was like, I'm sorry. What? And then he makes fun of her because she doesn't weigh. She weighs more, and it was 110 pounds. By 5. I'm going to lose my mind. So yeah.
No, but we also saw Margot Robbie in person, and she is a golden goddess.
Oh my gosh! When we got to go to the Birds of Prey set, of course,
yeah,
she's just stunning and sweet and smart, so and you're like, nice. That's not fair. You're not supposed to be perfect.
She read her book.
That was sweet. Yeah.
She and Journey was also really great too. Yeah. Journey Smollett. She'd read Margot. She was like, oh my God, I read your guys' run
and Gales and everybody.
Yeah. So it was that was a really nice.
Yeah, Margot's kind of the best.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm psyched to see what James Gunn is going to do with the DCU beyond what he's already done.
I know. Can we write something now?
Yeah.
Are women allowed to write DC movies now?
I don't know.
I hear you. Any comic ideas percolating?
Well, we want to do a Marvel show. Should we just pitch it to John?
Yeah, let's.
Who cares? So
Julie pitches it really well. So she pitched it to me. She called me one morning, very bright and early, and said, "I have a brilliant idea." And I was like, "Okay, I'm coming down because obviously this is going to be good."
So I love Dazzler, Disco Dazzler from the 80s. Sienkiewicz covers. I mean, you can't go wrong. And yet they never really knew what to do with that character. It felt like, obviously they just wanted a Casablanca record and hit the disco phase. And yet she had this amazing superpower. And of course, we just throw in some roller skates and, blue star on her face. And there you go. But I was
what is her superpower?
So she can take sound and manipulate it into structure, images.
It's a little Green Lantern.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like a Banshee Green Lantern hybrid thing.
I'm with you.
And she was a singer, so she was always.
I did know that, and Disco Queen. I knew all that, but go on.
So I was like, what if? And I have not seen season 2 of White Lotus yet, so I will say this was not inspired by that, but I just have always loved Jennifer Coolidge. And I was like, how would you do a Disco Dazzler today? And you don't really want to do the 80s version, but you do, but you don't. So the pitch is you open on present day and it's Jennifer Coolidge in her living room watching a car chase in LA. She's living in her Hollywood condo.
Nothing like ours.
With her dog, single, not at all.
Nothing like ours.
And the doorbell, you see her get up and you're like, oh, is she going to go deal with this car chase? I'm watching a show called Dazzler. I'm assuming that's what this is. And she answers the door and it's the pizza guy. But before she answers the door, she says, Alexa, play a song. and she takes the music and manipulates it into an outfit because she's in her just pajamas on the couch. Yeah. So when she opens the door, she looks really glamorous and takes her pizza, goes back to the couch, morphs the illusion away.
Frump again, yeah, absolutely.
And then back to Frumpy. And then she sort of sees the car chase is still going, and she's like, all right. And then she leaves. Before she does, she's got some blue eyeshadow. You're starting to think like, oh, here we go. Cut to a karaoke bar. And she has just gone out for the night and she's singing karaoke with some guy. And then everyone's cheering. It's all a bunch of older people. And she's thinking, oh, they want me to do another song. Okay, I'll do one of mine. And she starts singing the song. And it's kind of crickets, like not really anybody's into it. And she's like, well, I guess you just had to be there. Smash 2, 1980s, and you have Taylor Swift on stage as Dazzler, a younger Jennifer Coolidge, singing this song to a huge stadium of people, and you immediately go, what the hell happened to Dazzler? From great. This person to that person? What happened? What went wrong?
I love it. Oh my God. How do we get to Feige with this? This is a great idea. I don't
know. We're writing, we just sort of wrote a one sheet about it, and we know where we want to take it. We know the finale. We know the next season. We know what characters.
Weirdly, it all came out in like 3 hours.
Not even.
Like it was one of those pulled from the heavens and onto the paper. If you
remember, Shatterstar is in Deadpool, and Shatterstar was played by a friend of ours, Louis Tan, who was in the Assassins. And we were like, well, let's see. Shatterstar in the comics was Dazzler's son. So I'm just saying, maybe we can fit something like that in. So anyway, we have all of these insane ideas and we want to do it. And usually you don't pitch your ideas because somebody will steal it. I don't even care anymore. Like if somebody steals it, I'll know.
Yeah.
But also
we want to see
someone do this.
So we can
I want to see
an older
woman dealing with her where glory. She is in life and what's happening. And
if you can do it for Wolverine with Logan, I don't see why you can't do it for because it is hard to sort of say, well, how do you tell a story about Dazzler in the modern day as Disco Dazzler? And you can't.
But you can make a ridiculous sort of Angeline looking woman who, when she goes out, looks crazy cute and whatever. But at home, she's watching her stories and,
that's
kind
hilarious.
of a solo act.
Yeah. And I mean, we talked a lot about, she's somebody who, thought she could be a solo act, and maybe that wasn't the right decision for her.
Because she was one of the only people who did turn down the X-Men at one point.
I'd forgotten that. That's fantastic.
You told Xavier beat it.
Yeah.
Great idea, honestly.
Anyway, so that's what we want to do.
That's what we want to do. We spend a lot of time pipe dreaming that.
Can we get with, I don't even know, would CB be able to help you, or? I mean,
I don't know. We haven't talked to anybody. We don't really know anyone at Marvel, honestly. That's just a different world for us. But Marvel, if you're listening,
we don't even hardly know anyone at DC anymore.
I know. I don't know where anyone's landed.
It's like,
well, sometimes Brevoort and some of the others do dip into word balloons, so it's possible. What's the greatest compliment? You guys can appreciate this, given some of your celebrity stories. Phil, Susan Eisenberg, my buddy, the animated, who's I'm sure your buddy as well.
Yeah, we met her.
The animated Amazon, as I like to call her, Wonder Woman. She, we did a great table read of all the, and it was when Kevin obviously was still with us too, and we had the whole cast do a table read for the couple Justice League scenes. And in preparation for that, I had Phil Lamar on the show, and he was great and really sweet. Last summer, again, same show that I saw Dave Foley at. Phil is there, and it was great because when he came on, we did a Zoom, and it was great. But he's like, I was checking your backlog, and he's a big comic nerd, and he's like, man, you get everybody, and I'm like, well, I've been doing it for 17 years. I'm like, thankfully they trust me, but it was great. So I hadn't seen him since the table read, and that was like 2 years ago. Yeah. And I presume nothing. Everybody meets so many people. I'm sitting in Frank.
Legend. Are you kidding? Do you know how many people you've had on the show? You do know, but it's incredible. It's incredible. Wow. The fact that you even put us on the show when we were just breaking into comics, we owe so much to you for anyone knowing who we even were. It really is a big deal what you do.
We get so much, so many people that tell us
more about
word balloon. Yeah, word balloon.
More than
anything else. And it's usually about trivia nights with Tom. But I mean,
which we'll have to do again. We have to.
Please, you know it, guys. Well, like I said, I mean, everybody gets busy. But I was going to say regarding Phil, I'm sitting at Franco's table. Phil comes up and is talking to Franco, and I'm like, Phil, I'm sure you don't remember me, John Suntress, Word Balloon. He's like, John, I heard your tribute to Neil Adams episode 2 weeks ago, and I'm like, oh, thanks, man. You still listen?
Yeah.
So, I mean, exactly. It's truly meeting people. Scott Porter from Friday Night Lights, the quarterback.
Yeah.
Beautiful and beautiful man. Heart of Dixie, of course. He, I can't remember the name of the screenwriter who's like, Scott really loves your show. And I'm like, and this is when he had just done Speed Racer and did Friday Night Lights. He was doing Heart of Dixie at the time. Right. But, he was the voice of Cyclops on those Japanese-made Iron Man, Wolverine, X-Men.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's so cool.
So, and it was great because his PR people are like, kind of like putting the brakes on me and like, yeah, we'll see if Scott has time. And finally, I told our mutual friend, I'm like, hey, if Scott wants to be on my show, let his PR people know that he really wants to do it. And he could not have apologized more. And he's like, I'm so sorry, man. He goes, if it's not USA Today or CNN, they have no idea who the fuck they are. I'm like, it's fine. It's okay. But I was so thrilled that he really wanted and made the effort to come on.
That's so great. I love that.
I'm not surprised that you have fans in all corners because, the show's been on how long, John?
17 years. Yeah.
It's insane.
No, I appreciate
fans for introducing me to you.
That's right.
Who did we?
Fans,
of course. 100%. Good Lord, yes, and thank you, Brian, for making that happen. Because again, we fell in love over Central Illinois, of course, in my years in Central Illinois.
Was that when we were at C2E2 that we met you?
Probably. Or it was.
It could have been San Diego.
No,
it might have been San Diego. It also might have been New York.
Oh,
because you guys introduced me to the guy who used to write. One of the New 52 books that was one of the milestone characters. Was it John Spencer, the writer?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember you guys introduced me to him. So, that's funny. Yeah, Pan says it was 2016. There you go.
I have no memory. So yes, that's right.
No, because that was our first. That was the first issue had literally come out the day before.
Right, we were supposed to.
So nobody had it for signing, and they didn't. And they, that was the one where we're like, we have the cards, right, to sign.
And they're like, we draw something. I'm like, no,
what? You don't do that.
That's not what we do. And then we end up like drawing really terrible. Me drawing lots of because people would say and they go, oh, I want one of those too, and I'm like, no, you don't.
Michael's saying Dazzler. Yes, Dazzler was in the X-Men.
Yes,
very good. Yes.
Oh, and also, I like what Langley said. If not a TV show, Marvel is doing these life story special miniseries, and that would be a great Dazzler idea.
That'd be fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. My favorite memory of you guys at San Diego was it was really late. King was out there. Jody Hauser was out there. Snyder was out there. And I looked over at poor Shawna, was just so dead tired. And she had the saddest look on her face. I'm like, what's the matter? Are you okay? She's like, I'm just really tired. I'm like, okay, get it. It's 4 a.m. or whatever it was.
2 a.m. meet at the harbor. And I was like, you kids, I don't know how you do this. We stayed up because we were like, we want to meet everyone.
You're trying so hard to like.
That was awesome. And also right after my leg infection when I still had the cast on and stuff and you guys are at I know. Yeah. I couldn't. They're like, seriously, the doctors are like, you cannot go. You can't walk that much. And I'm like, all my friends are there. Can I at least just go for, all right, 3 hours, after hours at the bar. That's it. I'm like, all right, fine.
Oh, we were so glad to see you.
It was so lovely that you came.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Am I keeping you guys from dinner?
Wrap it up?
I was going to say, am I keeping you from dinner? Should we wrap it up?
Yeah, maybe we should wrap it up.
Well,
my
dog would like
trying to go back outside.
Up, but,
okay. No, you guys
done a pretty good marathon too. Almost.
We'll come back and do trivia, maybe like around New Year's or something.
Oh, please! Oh God, yes. Again, I mean, really, my week between Christmas and New Year's is wide open.
Oh, great!
So, and we can. I don't know what Tom's schedule's like, or it could be the three of us.
Tom doesn't have a life, right? Like,
hey, I mean, what is he doing anyway? That guy,
or anybody else. And also, guys, because you were a big part of it, real fast. Thank you so much. That year, and I always roll my eyes having to say John Con, but that first COVID year, we just had that Mondo show. Yeah, but you guys were so great. And truly, that was when I met Vita Ayala. That's when I met Cantwell. And it was just this wonderful show that we all were just hanging out and bullshitting. And I love, in fact, I'm going to rerun it because I like doing reruns. And I want to rerun that because it was so much fun.
Yes.
That was a lot of fun.
So, yeah. All right. I don't want to, I feel like I'm torturing the dog.
Not at all.
He's just being really bored.
Being a brat.
He's being a brat.
Congratulations,
Thank you,
guys.
everyone in the comments for all the questions. You can find us on Twitter if you have more questions about the episode.
We appreciate everyone watching the show. And
huge fans.
Yes. At the Julie Benson for Julie. At Shawna Benson for Shawna. And again, they know how much I love them. You guys are the best. And truly, it's been really great getting to know you guys and being friends and everything, truly. So, and like I always say, can't we all live on the same street? It would make things that much easier.
I mean, come on, where's our commune already?
All right, give me 1 second to say something before we say goodbye, and we'll do it off the air. But until next time, everybody, stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.